I'm just chilling out right now.
Okay.
Super chill today. I'm just tired. Keep going to bed too late. I did that thing where like the first like 6 or 7 days of me being off, I was like super good. Went to bed fairly early. Woke up pretty early, so I could play games all day. But then for the last like 3 or 4 days, it's just been like going to bed at 2 and waking up at like 8. So I've been like getting no sleep and then napping in the afternoon. But I haven't had a nap today, so that's probably why I feel even more tired.
That's good though, right? Because then you'll sleep through tonight, hopefully, right?
I always sleep. I'm not a weak sleeper.
I like how you've used the word weak there,
Yeah, you know,
rather
choose
than
my language carefully.
rather than
Yeah, I
bad
didn't say light
sleeper.
sleeper, weak sleeper,
Okay.
strong sleeper.
Okay.
I think I'm trying to remember. I think I have woken up in the middle of the night before, but it's usually been like really bad IBS or illness. I think that's the only two reasons I've ever had to wake up early in the morning.
What's you
In the
waking up
middle of a
because your
sleep
stomach is
cycle.
disturbed?
Yeah, I guess like really, really bad IBS, but I haven't had that in months, so all good now.
Okay.
How are you doing then, Nick?
Yeah, good. Yeah, all right. You?
Yeah, tired but happy,
Mhm.
I guess.
Yeah, we
A bit fried.
sure. Too much gaming.
Too much gaming.
We've been in a very transitional period for the house. You can't see it, but there's a wardrobe next to me because we're doing the bedrooms now. So
Okay.
it's got to get worse before it gets better.
You got to crack a
Um,
few eggs to make an omelette, as they say.
yeah, exactly. But I'm sort of hoping with a few months of concentrated effort, we will get there. Hopefully. So
Good.
yeah. Um. So thank you for joining me, Jay. It feels like it's been a while since we've done a pod, and we've got a lot to talk about. A lot this week. Obviously, we talk about video games whenever we record. And we're going to start with your favorite section of the show, pod,
Uh oh. Uh
being the news, because we've got a lot to talk about
oh. Okay.
before we get there. In the
Uh
mid-credit scene of Ant-Man, what does Hank Pym show his daughter Hope? I almost don't want to give you the options because the question is that easy.
It's been a while since I've watched it, so you might need to. I mean, I feel like it's probably the wasp suit, right? More than anything.
Correct.
Yeah. I can't remember. I couldn't remember if he did that in the movie or if that was part of the credit scene.
Do you want the other options that they've given?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
An XO8 Falcon prototype, a new signal decoy and ICBM prototype, or the last existing file of Pym particles?
Oh, yeah. I feel like yeah. They're not very good other options.
Aye, that be true.
You know what's funny? You freak me out so much. You do. I don't
Why?
know if did I get that from you. I don't think I did.
What?
I keep saying I,
What, I,
as
that
in
be true, or just
A
I?
Y E I, like
I.
pirate I.
I
I
mean,
say it all the time now.
me and Will quote it a lot because it's Pirates, Caribbean.
Yeah, I guess maybe I did get it from you.
Do you tie your
But
joggers together like your little string?
sometimes,
Do you think if you have a tight belt or tight waist on thing on, do you think that makes you poo more?
I will say it's definitely bad if you have IBS. You're not
You
supposed to
reckon?
constrict. You're not supposed to constrict your stomach if you have IBS.
Okay. Oh, we've
It
lost
makes it
connection.
worse.
Oh, okay.
No, we
Sorry.
haven't. We're
Yeah,
good. I'm
it just
just
came
being
up
very
saying one.
still.
No. A little notification came up. Sorry.
Okay, fair enough.
Shall we crack on then, Jay? I think it'll be a massive episode today.
We should.
Hi.
We
Okay.
shall.
Let's start with your news stories of the well. Let's start with one, and then we'll go on to basically the main topic of the show. Frankly, so your topic, Jay, or sorry, not your topic, your news story. Hogwarts. Sorry, where does this come from? Company earnings call from Warner Brothers. Discovery CEO David Zaslav has said Hogwarts Legacy has sold Okay, this is not what he said. I'm just giving you the news now, okay? Hogwarts Legacy has now sold 15 million copies and made over $1 billion.
How many copies?
15 million units sold.
That's kind of insane, isn't it?
Expected to keep growing, apparently. Switch version coming in July. What a huge
Yeah, I think
result.
the previous gens just came out. It was like end of April, I want to say. Beginning of May.
Anyone given like a temperature check on those? Are they broken or what?
I think they're all right. I think they play fine. Apparently,
Okay. All right.
from what I've seen. Yeah, I mean, all that marketing of people trying to shit on the game, and now it's done this well. I think, if anything, it's probably helped it. More than likely, it just goes to show, doesn't it, how if the content is good enough, it will still sell. Although that's not the best margin for anything that's good if it makes a lot of money, because Venom made a lot of money, and that's probably one of the shittest movies in existence. So
true, but it's a good thing that we've got a single player Harry Potter game making a lot of money for futures. Hopefully, single player Harry Potter games.
yeah, hopefully it means we'll get another one, and it'll be a hell of a lot better. Because while I think Hogwarts is amazing, I think it has a long way to go.
Yeah.
Still, if I'm honest, I think it didn't exactly meet expectations for a lot of people, including me. I think it was the very bare bones of what people wanted. It didn't even have bloody Quidditch in it, for God's sake. Ridiculous.
And it looks like that'll be a separate game then, compared to putting it in now.
Well, they are making a Quidditch game, but it's a mobile game.
Great.
And it's cartoony and for kids. But
well, to be fair, the original OG Quidditch game was kind of cartoony in style.
Well, I mean, it was a... yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Like, original
PS2
Xbox
game. Yeah, or original Xbox.
PS2.
Yeah. That game was awesome, dude.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. A lot of old games are. That's what I'm coming to realise nowadays.
You sound like me, Jay. You sound like me.
A lot of people are looking back. I feel like a lot of people are trying to realise that PS2 and 360 was actually a bloody good time.
I mean, yeah. Jay, do you remember the conversations we have? Because
yes.
I remember last time we had this conversation, you're like, Nick, you're too pessimistic. You're not looking at all the good games we've had in the last 10 years.
Joking, the Xbox One generation was awful.
Sure, but like your Red Dead 2s, your Last of Us Part 2s.
Although, funnily enough, the PS4 generation was amazing, and it was the same generation. So
it's true. Well, that's true.
Xbox
Arguably
One
the best in terms of exclusives, right? Arguably.
Probably, yeah. I think PS4 generation was probably the best console generation we've had, other than PS2.
And we lived through that recently, dude.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So, are you ready to move on to the next story, Jay? Are we okay to go?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah?
Okay, let's go.
Okay. All right. So, Jay, while we were doing our thing, so Jay's been off for a while. He's been gaming and stuff. He's going back to work tomorrow. While we've been doing our thing, basically, I was at work when I saw this. So this was before I was off. I was at work, and boom, pops up the Kind of Funny Xcast, which is the Xbox podcast and Kind of Funny that I do listen to occasionally, sort of like every other week. Had Phil Spencer on, and it looks like they basically booked him to talk about the launch of Redfall like a month before even the blocking of the Activision Blizzard acquisition by the CMA. I think it's the CMA. So
yeah, they booked him a while ago.
Yeah, so they booked him before all this had happened. Obviously, these things have happened, i.e. the Activision Blizzard blocking, the reception that Redfall had. So this was a very interesting time for Phil Spencer to be having an interview. So anyway, so they did a sort of 35-minute interview, I believe. I'll send the link to Jay. I listened to it straight away because I was just so interested. And lo and behold, it has even Maximilian has been talking about it. So a lot of people have been talking about their strategy, what Phil Spencer has said, and it definitely sheds a lot of light on what me and Jay want to chat about. I mean, this is huge for me, and I think it's huge for Jay too in terms of what he talked about. So obviously, I want to dive right in.
It kind of like changed my opinion on Xbox, like
exactly.
Not really, like it was difficult. Like my once this whole Redfall thing happened. And I experienced it. I was so down in the dumps for like a day or two. I felt like I wasted 48 hours of my life. Like, what the fuck did I just do? What a waste of time. And then Phil comes out and basically apologizes. I think it's the first time in history. And it was funny. I've always had this thing of like, I don't think I've ever had anyone say sorry to me and felt better afterwards.
Sure.
I feel
Well,
like
that's
to
harsh,
me, a
Jay,
lot
because I say sorry to you about things.
of I know, but I feel like sorry to me isn't necessary. I think sorry is more for the person saying it than the actual person who's receiving it.
I understand.
Sorry is basically you saying like, can I have your forgiveness? That's
Because I
basically
feel
what sorry
bad.
is.
Sure.
And the other person, if they go, well, thank you, then that's their way of being like, yeah, I forgive you or whatever, to a degree.
Mm.
And this was sort of one of the first times in recent memory where I think to myself, oh, that apology actually kind of like made me feel better, because it was kind of an apology in a way.
For
Phil
sure.
took the main headline is that he takes full responsibility for Redfall, which I don't think he should necessarily take full responsibility for. I think he should take like 90% of it, because obviously part of the interview was him saying how he regrets not um, putting more people on it to try and improve it for release. Essentially, I think
Do you want me
the
to read the
consensus
quote out,
is
Jay, from the
you can
IGN?
do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you want
I'm
me?
obviously yeah.
It's up
Please.
to you. I don't mind, but
I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, you might as well.
yeah, of course. So basically, they asked him about the initial launch of Redfall. I'll just give the whole shebang just to set it all up in case none of you guys have listened to it. So, quote: "There's nothing that's more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community and just kind of watch the kind of watch the community lose confidence and be disappointed.
You should
I'm
pretty be used to that though.
I'm disappointed. I'm upset with myself. I kind of revisit our process. I think back to the announcement of 60 frames per second, that we weren't shipping with 60 frames per second. That was our punch in the chin, rightfully, a couple of weeks ago. And while Spencer admitted that, quote, the critical response was not what he wanted, end quote, he did say, quote, one thing I'll fight is the idea of what went wrong, end quote. Well, sorry, let's carry on. There's clearly quality and execution things we can do, but one thing I won't do is push against the creative aspirations of our teams. I'm a huge
True.
supporter of Arcane Austin. Their track record is awesome. I love a lot of the great games they've built. This is one where the team didn't hit their own internal goals when it launched. I think it's maybe a little simplistic to say, hey, if you had just delayed it 3 months, the core creative of the game that the core creative of the game would have delivered on something that was different to what it was. End quote. Let's just stick there for a minute. I think that's a lot to
It wouldn't have been
digest.
much different. It wouldn't have been much different if they delayed it a year. I honestly don't think.
Yeah, agreed.
I think this will be a Dead Man's Sky stroke 76 situation where a year, 2 years from now, it'll probably be ready for launch. Honestly,
And that's way too long for a game, Jade, like this, you know?
Yeah, this game shouldn't have come out for a long, long time.
But even if it did, Jade, I think it would have just cost too much money to justify
Exactly.
the...
I think they knew that they obviously knew this wasn't going to be any good, but they were like, well, at least as long as it runs okay when it releases, should be fine. But didn't even manage to do that. So they failed on 2 accounts. I mean, it's currently sitting, I think, at a 55 on Metacritic right now, with I think a 2 point. I think it's currently rated lower than 76, No Man's Sky, and Forspoken. I want to say as well. It's I think it's technically the worst rated game of this year, or AAA of this year.
sure.
So,
Yeah. And like you say, Jay, he then goes on to say, you know, quote, he's going to take full responsibility for launching a game that needs to be great, end quote.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I chip in? I don't want to ruin your flow.
Let me just say one more thing. I felt there's definitely like I think the main concern here is like a level of hypocrisy in that if you're a guy like that, or if you're someone who knows that a game is going to be of that quality when it comes out, it should have been scrapped years ago. Like, I think they knew this thing was bad like a year and a half ago before they even announced it, and they were like, "Oh God, you guys! But I really hope you guys get this ready." They just sort of like took way too much of a chance on this thing. This thing should have been scrapped. I think the part of the reason why it wasn't is because Xbox needed a game to sell Game Pass for around this time of the year. They just needed something, and this was in the pipeline. And there's probably like 5 or 6 games in the pipeline, and they probably scrapped maybe 3 or 4 of those. And they should have scrapped one more because this just wasn't any good. But I think people are just concerned about the hypocrisy of Xbox being like releasing this quality of a game for 70 quid, and it's like that should be. I think a lot of people are saying that shouldn't even be legal. Like, it's probably the biggest version of like false advertising there is. Like, it's like saying, I want to buy a product from someone, and there's a picture of it, and it's not even close to what that picture is. Like, it's like the wrong color. It's like doesn't taste. It's not even like, let's say someone like tries to sell you a burger, and it's like a regular looking burger, but you get it and it's like black, and it's not even a burger. It's like fish. Like, that's basically what this is. Like, you've just sold me something that isn't even close to what it is. It's edible, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted what was on in the picture, kind of thing. So, but yeah, regardless of that, I have played it, and there is a spark there. I just don't think they managed to light it on fire necessarily. So yeah, you go ahead. You go and say what you need to as well.
No, it's cool. It's all good. Yeah, there's obviously a lot to talk about, Jay.
Please, yeah. I've been wanting to hear your side of it because we haven't spoken about it at all, basically.
Yeah, sure. So, in, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to order my thoughts so I know where to start and where to go.
It's difficult, isn't it?
It is.
Where to start?
Let's start, I guess, with the management of Redfall, right? So, obviously, you have to listen to the podcast because I'm not going to read the whole, transcript. But basically,
I was going to say, one of the things I was going to say is you might as well listen to the podcast because it's kind of a bit of a revelation, honestly.
Totally, it really is
kind of insane.
So basically, Phil and by the way, I've listened to a lot of people talk about this, so this is maybe a bit of an amalgamation. But from the sounds of it, Xbox obviously took over Bethesda, as we know, Jay, and then they essentially left them as a separate entity to get on with it to see how they did, right? And Jay's fucking laughing, and I'm laughing because it's like, what? You've got all of these resources, and by the way, our knowledge, I won't speak for Jay, my knowledge of game development is nothing. I basically know nothing, but you've got all these other teams internally, you're acquiring new teams internally, which means talent, which means knowledge, which means tools, which means resources. And sometimes I would imagine that, if, let's say, a lead came to you and said, we need some help on this or this, you go, yeah, I can put you in touch with that person and, make the games better, right? But instead, they were left to basically create their own games. And it looks as though ZeniMax, the parent company at the time, basically told Arcane to create, I don't know, some sort of multiplayer game because, they make money and we need live service games or something. That's what it looks like. And then obviously Arcane had to go make a game, which they don't usually make. And I know there are arguments like, say, Obsidian and making Grounded and that. Well, you can make a great game that isn't like that. And I completely agree. And Respawn's a great example of that, right? That you may make a third-person action game. They can make a first-person action game. But anyway, it looks as though Arcane were basically made to make this sort of game. Maybe they weren't. Even so, they made this game. Xbox, this now becomes part of the Xbox brand. The reason it becomes part of Xbox brand is because they do a joint showcase together and they say Starfield is exclusive. So it's not a case of me and you saying like, just because Xbox have acquired them doesn't make it. No. They made it very clear Bethesda were part of Xbox. And that was part of the selling point, right? And as Jay has said multiple times, obviously he was excited about Redfall. And it was kind of this key element of Game Pass this year was Redfall, right? So it becomes this whole thing. So then, one, you didn't talk to the company you just acquired for $6 billion. That's core leadership issues.
7.6.
7.6. Yeah, thanks, Jay. Like, that is core what the fuck. And then second, you've then got, as Jay says, when you're looking at all the games internally, some games might be worth canning early on. And I think Phil recognizes that by the comments he's made, and that you could have gave this game 2 years, it still would have been shit, basically. As far as I'm considering it, like, the creative wasn't hitting the mark. So this game probably should have been... Go on.
from what I've heard, is that this game actually was almost. They were told to get the game out quicker, basically, just
Okay.
so that they could shift resources to another game that Arcane are currently making. Because I think
Right.
the people who made this are Arcane Austin.
Which made Prey, right? Is that correct? I
Yeah,
believe.
and then
Yeah.
obviously Arcane is that what's the other Arcane? Is that the more French what Arcane?
Yeah. Made Deathloop,
They're
right?
currently making a supposedly a massive game coming out in about 3 or 4 years
Okay.
or so. It's been rumored that they've shifted all their resources from Austin. Basically, all the people who are working on Redfall, most people who are working on Redfall, are now working on this other game because they needed to move resources and budget or whatever. So I reckon that's even part of the reason why, potentially part of the reason why Redfall hasn't done so well. I mean, they even said that part of their like whole thing with this game is they said this was going to be one of the Game Passes or potentially Arcane's most like looked after and constantly updated game. Like, they're going to update this game for years to come, apparently. Like their whole thing. They even said that they like it's going to be almost like a Destiny style roadmap of like constantly adding things to the game. And I don't really see how that really makes sense.
Yeah, I can't imagine that's going to happen
I
after the
can't.
launch, right?
I don't know how they ever thought they were going to manage that. Just sounds a bit crazy to me.
Might be marketing speak, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many faux pas here that it just kind of feels a bit off. But there is definitely something there. Like, you know, it has something. But I'm really sick of saying this, of that one thing of like, oh, it has potential, like it has that thing, but didn't quite hit the mark. Like, I feel like I've said that way too many times over the last year, and I'm getting a bit tired of it, to be honest.
I'm a bit sad. You guys won't know that Jay messaged me because obviously like Redfall came out and there's bad reception, and I feel like basically Jay had succumbed to the dark side, as it were, in that my view on a lot of modern games just being a bit shit and things not being finished, etc., etc., etc. I feel like you adopted that a little, Jay, following the launch of Redfall, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hit really hard with this one. Like, I specifically took off time for work for this too. Like, my
Right.
whole thing was I was gonna play Jedi for like 4 or 5 days, if that, like 3 or 4 days, and then I was gonna put the rest of the week I had off into Redfall. And I mean, yeah, I gave up on Redfall after 2 days, I think.
You did play it then.
Man, it was tough. Yeah, I played it, but it was not good. I will say it actually ran better than I thought it was going to. Like the 30 frames didn't really seem to be too much of an issue, which I'll talk about later on, more about with Jedi too. Um, but yeah, I think it ran a lot better than I thought it was. It's just really it felt similar to how Fallout 76 did on launch, to be honest.
And they
Very
should have
very
learned from
similar.
that, right? How did they possibly not learn
Yeah, it's
from
funny how
that?
both instances of that have been Bethesda and versions of multiplayer games that should be single player games.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like they've struck lightning twice, but the lightning has hit them on the head rather than in a jar.
Yeah, exactly. And Mr. Matty Plays put this very well
Oh, dude,
in
he
the
nailed it. I love his
defining
stuff.
yeah, in the Defining Duke Xbox podcast that he does, he's saying you had Bethesda Game Studios, which made 4 Game of the Years in a row, and you could argue the same with Arcane Austin or Arcane in general. Even with Prey's got a huge cult following, and you make them make one multiplayer game because you see how much money Destiny and Fortnite's making, all this kind of shit, and it fucking bombs twice for the
Yeah,
same company.
it's funny. I think the amount of people who've been playing Prey went up like 10 or 20 fold over the last week.
So they were
Because
playing
everyone,
Redfall and they were like, "Oh, I fancy
no,
playing Prey."
seriously, everyone who reviewed Redfall was like, "Look, go play Prey. It's on Game Pass. It's way better of a game. Just go play it instead." And then
Sure.
everyone just went and played Prey instead. It's
Hmm.
insane.
That is
Which
insane.
Arcane still benefits from that. Which but even I don't know. I'm fed up. I'm so fed up at the minute. I'm
I
just at
think
the minute. I'm just trying to look forward to Diablo at this point. I need to move on to the next thing.
I think
But
in a
luckily,
w-
I had something else to do during this time. But yeah, we'll get on to that. Go on.
I was just gonna say, I think in a way you should be fed up because I'm fed up too, Jay. Like
It's not good enough.
It it okay. Well, just before I move on this point, I was just gonna say
Mm,
this lends to my personal theory that Xbox. Well, a lot of other people share this theory, but Xbox acquires and you know this too, Jay. Xbox basically acquired Bethesda because if you look at the pipeline for this year, for instance, there is nothing apart from Bethesda again, and their strategy is acquisition, right? So like keep buying studios to get more games, and
good idea.
it's like yeah, but you actually have to manage the games to do it. And like I've had and this lends to what your sort of pessimism, Jay. I've had so much faith in Xbox for so long. Like I've given them the benefit of the doubt for we're going to say about 7 or 8 years now. And in the last
Yeah,
couple of
close to a
years,
decade.
as you know, because I haven't paid attention to some of the events and stuff, and I didn't like the developer directs, my faith has been waning greatly. And this interview for me personally was the point where I am happy to wave Xbox goodbye on the Viking ship as I fire a flaming arrow to it, because I
Oh,
like
really?
my
You've given up?
console a lot, and I'll play games on Game Pass, and I love the controller and I love the console. I still think it looks better than PS5, but in terms of games, Jay, I'm done, bro. I am genuinely done.
So that's funny. I feel like this isn't like, self-masturbatory. I try not to be in this instance, but I still haven't given up hope. I'm one of these people who is very pessimistic, um, and I'd like to think that
Do you mean optimistic? Sorry, do you mean
no, I
pessimistic?
mean
Oh, okay.
pessimistic. I tend to look at things in a very like dark way, or like fuck that, I'm done with this kind of shit kind of stuff. I tend to not put up with stuff. But when it comes to games, I think it takes a lot more than a decade of being disappointed to make me give up. I don't give up that easy. I don't think I wouldn't want to give up that easy. So I think the thing that might put the nail in the coffin for me is if Starfield isn't going to get. I think that's my next test. I think as long as Starfield's alright, we're back. I think the
And
problem with
on
that
on that
is that I feel like
Starfield,
that's Xbox, like that's their strategy, is that they have like one good game every like 7 years, and the last good one was like Skyrim, and it wasn't even an Xbox exclusive.
sure.
You
Well,
know?
on the Starfield element, Jay, we'll talk about what he said in the interview. But Jay, if Starfield is not a game of the generation at this point, because of the position it
It
is within
has
the
to be the
Xbox
next Skyrim.
portfolio,
It has to be.
it has to be. Because if it's
It can't not
anything
be.
less, Jay, if I don't see tens across the board, like a Resident Evil 4, like an Elden Ring,
It
I'm
won't be a
actually going to be
10. It'll be a
crushed.
9.
I'm going to be crushed, bro.
I can almost guarantee you it won't be anything more than a 9. I don't think so. I can't imagine so.
But it needs to be. It needs to be
Yeah, it
a
does.
10.
It does. I think it'll be 10s in some places, and it'll be 9s in others. I think it might even be an 8 in some places. It just
It
depends.
needs to be a 10 for Bethesda Game Studios because of Fallout 76. It needs to be a 10 for Bethesda Publishing in general. It needs to now be a 10 for Xbox more than any of those two, right? Xbox is now the key. But what I mean is, Phil talked about a quote later on, or talked about.
I think, yeah. I'm hoping you're going to say what I think you're going to say.
I don't know if he has it. Generally speak, I don't know if he has it. That's weird. I don't know if I have it in a news story, but basically, Phil basically says, who's head of Xbox, by the way. I don't know if we've even clarified that. He's basically head of Xbox.
He's the guy.
He's the guy.
He's
He
the
basically
face.
says
Yeah.
that the Microsoft. Okay, well, let's talk about the Microsoft strategy then. So he basically says, if Xbox or if Redfall was great, or they released a great game or something to that degree, people wouldn't sell their PS5s the next day. It wouldn't happen.
Yes, true.
What else is true, Jay, is that if they released great games consistently, they would sell Xboxes. And that is the
Yes.
fucking truth. I mean, don't get me
But
wrong. I don't know that for 100% because nothing's 100%. But Jay, let's look at the
Phil said the
PS4.
opposite to that, right?
Go on, sorry.
He said that if Xbox made
Right.
great games, it wouldn't improve sales for Xbox. And
Uh,
I'm like, are you dumb? That is exactly what it should be doing. That's literally the whole point.
I
That's
couldn't put it
how
better myself.
PlayStation has outsold them this entire time because they've had great games for PlayStation. It's been like, oh, you can only play on PlayStation. I'm going to get a PlayStation then. It's the reason why I got one. It's the reason why I got a PS4. It's the reason why I got a PS5 because they're
And
exclusive on that I will want to play
And what's
because they're
interesting is that
great.
Phil then said about
That
losing
blew
the
my
Xbox
mind.
One generation, which, by the way, is the first time they've ever
Yeah,
talked about
they
losing that
admitted it, I
generation.
think too.
And then
Yeah,
he said basically that we're paraphrasing all of this. He said that that was a really bad generation to lose because you have a massive digital library in that generation. Now, Jay, I
true.
don't know about you. I get his point of view. I think that's a cop out. If you have an amazing game on a console that you don't have, i.e. Nintendo Switch, you are going to get it at some point, is my view.
Yeah, that's what happened to me with Pokemon. The only reason I got a Switch was Pokemon. It's the
I,
only reason I had
I
a
mean,
Switch.
PS5's outselling Xbox, Jay, because they've got fucking games.
And I didn't he even say that they were in third place?
Yeah, that you did. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he said we're in third place, and we've been in third place for a long time. It's like, yeah, Nintendo are doing better than you guys. And it's like, wow,
And then
which makes sense to be honest because it's Nintendo. But even so,
absolutely, and then he does talk about he acknowledges that look, there's no reason for you to trust us, but I can see the pipeline of games coming in. You're right, Phil. I don't trust you. I don't care what you say. I even at this point don't even care if you have got good games coming out because I just don't care anymore. I don't
uh,
care.
I I I have hope still. I'll always have hope, regardless of what happens. I think. I'm one of these people where I'm extremely pessimistic, but I'll almost always have hope for games because they are my lifeblood at this point.
Sure,
They're like the reason I get up for in the morning. They really
sure.
are. Like Starfield for me, like the games that are really wanting me to make sure I wake up every morning is Diablo and Starfield and Spider Man. I think that's pretty much it.
Dude, Spider-Man's gonna creep around, dude, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but they're already starting to build up. I mean, we're potentially getting a state of play, aren't we? At some point between now and middle of June, and we're
Yeah,
hoping that's where Spider-Man 2 is going to be showing gameplay.
for sure.
Hopefully,
For sure. But yeah,
Jesus,
I'm glad you've got hope, Jay. I think it's good. Um,
someone's got to have it, man.
but yeah, no, I mean, look,
I'm
after
holding on for both of us.
after I've said this list many times. I'm gonna say it again. Compulsion Games, who we have no idea what they're doing. Avowed, we haven't seen gameplay. Fable got announced 3 years ago. We haven't seen a single clip ever since. We don't even know if
Yeah, I
that fucking
saw
game's being made.
someone made a graphic that basically showed how long it's been since they announced certain games for Xbox. I think there was a list of about 10 or 11 Xbox exclusive games, and I think the most recent one that had been announced that we haven't heard about since, I think, was like a year and a half ago. Was how long ago it's been. I think it's three and a bit years on one of the games. And it was like a year and a half on another in between, like in between. All the rest of them sort of were like 2 years and 2.5 years in between. And it's kind of like, how as a company can you spend that long on that many games? Like it's gonna be a two buses at the same time situation, where we're just gonna get like six amazing games come all at the same time, and then none of them are gonna sell well because they all came together too quick. It's like, you need to space it out, basically.
Yeah, totally.
I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but we'll see. But chances are none of them are going to be any good. You got to think, right? It's like throwing shit at a wall, seeing what sticks, right? That's kind of what it seems like they're potentially going to be doing in the next 6ish years. But it's like, well, what if none of them stick? Like they've got. I mean, at this point, they have to hope that at least half of them stick. Because if it's any less, then it's like, what's the point? I feel like you have to have at least a 50% rate at at least half of them have to be any good. But it feels like that we're only getting like one every couple years. I can't even remember the last one we had that was any good.
Well, to be fair, I think if they are good, Jay, it's just that they're not in our bag at all, right? Like Minecraft
Yeah, there's
Legends is
that too.
apparently a
I feel like
finally competent game, but like we don't
people,
care about
Hi-Fi
that,
Rush, like people were raving about
right?
that, but again, I
I
wasn't
think
really that fussed.
I feel like that's left the zeitgeist even quicker than Hogwarts. I mean that it's sort of in a nice way, really. Like,
The beginning of the year is always such a blur for games because it happens so
mm,
quickly. Like
it does.
we had Elden Ring come out in February of 2021, I think. 22 maybe, I can't even remember what it was now.
I think it
Probably
was last
22.
year. I think it was last year. It's been out a
Yeah,
year.
because it was Game of the Year, wasn't it, last
Yeah.
year? And that was sort of like weirdly it sort of blew up in that time, but it sort of like it didn't fade away, but it just sort of like it stuck around for a while. And I think that's one of the first times I've seen that, where like a game at the beginning of the year just sort of stuck around the entire year. Like people are still playing it now, like the same amount. It's kind of insane. Someone's always playing that game.
No, yeah,
Great.
it is insane. And on the just on a separate note, Jay, on the subscription strategy. So Phil then goes on to talk about how in terms of the third place thing, that
Mm,
Xbox have to do their own thing. And so
mm,
that's where the subscription strategy comes into play, apparently. And what's interesting about that comment, Jay, is one, that sounds to me like Xbox One thinking, genuinely, in terms of
yeah,
we
does
need to
sound a
do
bit
the own
samey, doesn't it?
TV thing. We need to be in a separate lane. Nintendo are in a separate lane because he then talks about, we don't want to be the
Yeah, he
green
does.
guy compared to the blue guy, which was so interesting because he obviously knows how they're seen more than he lets on. Because of course he does.
I
He's
think
head of Xbox,
he's
right?
he's while he is head of Xbox, he almost feels like he's just one of us. Like he might be one of the first. Him and maybe Todd Howard, I guess, on like some level. Like when you look at Jim Ryan, is that his name?
Yeah, yeah.
He's not one of us.
He's a suit. Yeah.
He's a suit, right? He's a suit that happened to get put in front of the camera and had to made it be like, I'm one of you guys, but no, you're not. You're a granddad, basically, right? You are. You're my granddad who thinks he knows what he's talking about when it comes to games, when in
Sure.
reality, his kids told him what
You
games
guys
are
want
about, and he went,
Fortnite, right?
okay.
You want
Yeah,
Fortnite, right? Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, you want Fortnite. Yeah, yeah.
Whereas Phil Spencer feels more like the cool dad who knows what he's fucking talking about because he's been playing games since games came out. Like he's been playing on the bloody first ever computers, basically. He's like one of these. Same with Todd Howard. Like they're just one of those guys that have been around long enough to know about this kind of shit.
But like you say,
Um,
but like that hasn't resulted in games. Like I
I
don't know
know
what else to
it's.
say. Like
I think. Hmm,
Halo
it's
Infinite,
tough.
Forza Motorsport still haven't got a date. Like the list goes on, Jables. It really does. You know.
I think Xbox their heyday was 360, and I think they haven't really had much success since then.
Well, Jay, I actually wrote this down to bring this up. I think there's an argument that either original Xbox or 360, but like you say, their prime was borderline 15 to 20 years ago. We are talking
Yeah.
about a brand which, yes, we got life back through backwards compatibility. Yes, we
Hmm.
got life back through Game Pass. Everybody loves Game Pass. I can't
Game
fucking
Pass is the
remember
best thing to happen to Xbox
when was
in
the last
recent
thing
memory.
that Xbox put out AAA that we were like, whoa, whoa, exclusive. We were
I
like,
can't.
whoa.
It's hard to like bring to the front of my brain like even what Xbox have had exclusive in the last 10 years. It's really difficult to think.
The
It
only thing
really
that is
is.
literally coming to my mind is Sunset Overdrive, which was a fucking launch game basically
I
for
forget
Xbox
about that
One.
game most of the time,
It's
if
a
I'm
great game.
honest.
It's a great game.
Yeah.
Yeah, mental.
Okay.
At this point, if they were like, oh, I'll tell you what, guys, we'll bring the Blaze back for the dashboard and we'll just. Actually, no, this does relate to what I was going to say, Jay. I think if you paid me to ask me what Xbox should do moving forward,
Mm.
stop talking about anything, go quiet, do not show any games until they are 4 months from release. Don't feel compelled to do an E3 showcase. Don't fucking show your face until you have 5 great AAA games ready to go from like the 2,500 studios that you own. Like, do a
Yeah, and they
PlayStation.
should be
Don't fucking say
released
anything until you want
like
to.
what every 2 to 3 months. They shouldn't be
Yes.
released too close. They should have 5 games, and they should release them over the between 2 and 3 months, one after another.
Yep.
Across the year, which should have been the plan for this year. If I'm honest, when they did that thing at, was it not Game Awards, but maybe Summer Games Fest last year, where they said about the next 12 months of games they're going to
Yeah.
show off.
Yeah.
That should
Yeah.
have been in theory 5 to 6, maybe 7 amazing games, all top quality Xbox, amazing games, AAA. That should have been released in like February, April, June, August, October, and December. Like that should have been pretty much the release span of that year. That's what it should have been. And Starfield would have been in November, probably, or October, whatever I said. Forza probably would have been the December release, more than likely, or maybe even the summer release. I don't even know what other games should have come out. That's the thing. Like Fable, not no, I don't know about that. Thing is, I don't know what I have to look forward to for Xbox. Like I can't even think like what's an Xbox IP that I have to look forward to.
Well, you like Fable, right?
Not really. I
Okay.
think it's had its time.
Well, this is sort of spoiler territory, Jay, but Hellblade 2.
Yeah, this is true.
That's
I
it.
forgot about
So
that.
that's all I got.
Xbox?
Yeah.
It's not Ninja Theory.
Yeah, it's Ninja Theory, not
Is
Team
it Ninja
Ninja.
Theory?
Ninja Theory.
Yeah, I get the two mixed up.
Dude, every time.
Every time. They're the same
But
company as far as I'm concerned.
I know. But Jay, I promise you, that's all I can think of. I've been looking forward to Hellblade 2 for years. And before that was the Cuphead DLC.
Is this a segue?
No, it's not a segue. Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right.
Not yet.
Okay.
Just to finish up, well, not finish. Let's keep talking about this. So, in regards to Starfield, Jay, again, all these news stories were summarized by IGN. He discussed how Xbox have assisted with the Starfield development. So, quote, when we acquire studios, there are games that are in development and there's things that are either really early in development or not even conceived yet. I think we need to improve in engaging with games that are midway through production when they become part of Xbox, end quote. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, so this was the big thing about Redfall, how they basically didn't put their resources into the game until like the game was almost done. When in reality, they should have put the resources in the moment they bought Bethesda. The second that the money went through the account, they saw that the money been like, blah, 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 right, we have that in our account now. It should have been, right, let's go put our resources straight over right now. Let's get over there now. Not in a week, not in a day. Now.
Not tomorrow, not after breakfast.
Exactly.
Now.
Exactly. And they didn't. They were like, we'll give them a couple of months and we'll see how they're doing and then we'll help them out. It's like, no. Same thing should have been with Starfield, which I think Phil was basically saying that they did, right? They were like,
yeah, they did a better job with Starfield.
They did a better job, which I think is his damage control to be like, oh, fuck, we didn't do that. We should probably do that now.
But again, Jay,
I genuinely think that. I genuinely think they haven't helped with Starfield at all. I can almost guarantee you.
Well, Jay, but the thing is, we won't know until it comes out now, right? We just won't know.
Which is it's a shame. I think Phil should have admitted then. He should have been like, "Oh bugger." We did the same thing with Starfield. Oh god. Thing is, if we had said that, I think Starfield would have been dead in the water. Honestly, it would have been 100%. Dead before Arrival.
Jay, are we okay to talk about the CMA decision next?
Yeah,
to?
Honestly, I'm losing hope on that by the day.
Dude, so some people out there saying they're gonna appeal. Some people are saying they can't appeal, and some people are saying that they're
allowed to appeal.
Yeah. And some people are saying that it's dead in the water. I don't really know where the truth lies.
I think the saving grace was that the UK government could overturn it if they wanted to, but now the UK government have come out and said, no, we're not gonna. Essentially, they're like, yeah, nah, it's not a bad thing for Britain. We're going to keep it how it is. So that was like the saving grace for you, and I feel like we haven't even got that now. So.
For those who don't know, if my business studies is correct, Jay, the CMA, basically the UK law is that you can't have more than 25% of a particular market, and if you do, you're too dangerous, you're too big, right? Which, by the way, is kind of bullshit, because Apple definitely have over 25% of the mobile phone market.
And Sony have, I think, 60% of the digital releases market, I think.
Do they really? Oh.
Yeah. 60. It's a bit more than 25.
Hilarious. Well, anyway, this was like 10 years ago I learned this. But yeah, so the CMA basically like regulate that, right? So obviously Xbox do this acquisition. Xbox do this acquisition. They obviously have to go through, was it something like 14 regulatory boards, and Phil said they've got on the pass of 9 or something to that degree.
I think but obviously it's more than that now.
The CMA have blocked it. And this, as Jay says, everyone was quite excited for Activision Blizzard, right? Because there was a notion that Xbox could revive old franchises, they could help fix the company toxic culture, and they could help fix franchise problems with, say, Call of Duty. I think the reality is, Jay, following this blockage, and actually, I should say, following Redfall, I don't think Xbox would fucking know even where to start with
I was gonna
Activision
say,
Blizzard.
yeah, I feel like even if they did get it, they probably wouldn't know what to do with it. It seems like they are kids at the adult table. It's kind of what it feels like, and they should be put on their own table
Well, as we said, we always said, Jay,
with
they
the
felt
rest
like
of
the
the kids.
teenager of the group, and now they
Yeah, we
feel like
have
the
said this.
child.
Yeah, they've kind of reverted. They've Benjamin Buttoned themselves. They really have.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Sony has always almost felt like the millennial, the sort of like mid-20s millennial. Nintendo has felt like the kids, I guess, but the kids who are like geniuses, like who are really really good at maths and like know everything. Like
Can
they're
compose
like
great
child
music.
prodigies, I guess.
Yeah,
Nintendo are
sure.
child prodigies. Sony are sort of like the cool 24-year-olds, and Xbox are sort of like that really whiny, the voice is still breaking 13, 14-year-old, But now Xbox feels like they've sort of reverted to like that even more annoying 8 to 9-year-old, and they just have no idea what they're talking about. And it's just like, why? Why have you done this?
And the
I think more
reason,
than anything, it's just disappointing. It's like, what?
agreed.
Uh,
No, agreed. And I think it's disappointing because, as me and Jay have talked about, we could have had a lot of Activision Blizzard games on Game Pass, which would have been really exciting. And I think that was probably this plan,
yes.
right?
I
Um,
do kind of think that Call of Duty does need a bit of a change up to a degree. I don't know what degree, but it hasn't been the same for a while now. It's sort of got into that, you know, multiplayer not Fallout, Fortnite kind of realm of like just microtransaction the crap out of it, and people will pay for it basically. Which is what it is, but I think it potentially should just stay that way. I don't think it's really going to evolve much from that, to be honest.
agreed.
We'll see.
We will. And the reason it was blocked, Jay, is apparently the CMA think that essentially Microsoft or
This is
Xbox
so
will
dumb.
have a segment of the cloud gaming market,
Yeah.
or they will have a stronger position in a potential future market.
Yeah.
It's too strong to allow. Now the objection is again this: one, it doesn't exist. Two, we know it doesn't exist because Stadia literally failed on it, and
Yeah.
three, we don't really know. I mean, how many people use cloud and Xbox? I don't know, but I doubt the numbers are strong enough, right? But
It's
Jay, do you?
I think there is a number. It's very very little though. It's less than 10% of a certain market.
Okay. Do you think there's anything to CMA's claim here? Do you think that you can see them, do you think that actually Xbox know they could dominate this cloud gaming market in the future, and that's something to be
I
aware
don't
of?
necessarily think it's dominating the market. I think Xbox are trying to help others come up. It's almost like a streaming service help smaller creators become larger, is what it feels like. Because Xbox have done nothing, even after the announcement of the thing not going through. They've kept signing 10-year deals with like other cloud gaming services, being like, we're going to make sure you guys get a massive chunk of this market as well, kind of thing.
Jesus.
Like we're sharing the wealth essentially. Xbox are just putting their fingers in loads and loads of pies, making sure that everyone gets a fair deal. And CMA have been like, well, isn't that you just controlling the whole thing? And they're like, no, not really, because we have no control over it. We're just making sure that everyone else has enough control on their own to sustain themselves, basically. So
Also,
I
Jay.
think
Oh, sorry, go on.
there's been so many instances of markets that have just blown up over the years. And cloud gaming could blow up. It's definitely one of those future things that could be the next thing. But I think it'll be a lot longer of a time than in the next 10 years. I think we're talking probably 20, 30, 40 years, maybe longer. I don't know. So, well, they didn't. The CMA said that they're not going to allow them to appeal for the next 10 years or something.
Did they really?
Yeah, they've basically said that all those 10-year contracts you've now signed, yeah, they're not even valid anymore because we're not going to allow you to even do this for the next 10 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. They're getting really weirdly serious about it. It's really strange, but yeah, I mean,
Do you
I
think
don't know.
that's
Some people are saying they don't have any legs to stand on, but we'll see.
there are some
It's a
talks
long
that
battle now.
it might be political in that Sony have obviously made plays against the EU with the EU and make
Yeah.
moves there. So do you think it's political from
Oh
that
yeah, it's
perspective?
100% political. 100%. Yeah, it's all about Sony making sure that they keep their chunk of the pie. They don't want to get rid of any of their chunk because they know they've got too much of it, so they don't want to let anyone else have any of it because that means less money for a company that already has a lot of money. The rich get richer,
Yes, they do.
and the poor get poorer.
And the reporting on the acquisition, Jay, I think, following the CMA decision, clearly shows that it's been pretty wrong. Because a lot of the signs were very positive. Other gaming journalists saying, yeah, it's going to go through soon, it's going to go through soon. And it's not been the
Yeah, I
case,
think the
really.
consensus even with the gaming community is that they've done a couple surveys now on like gaming sites have been like, do you want that whole thing to go through? And it's been like overwhelmingly yes. Like it's I think it's been like 90-10 in most cases.
Why do we think that's because why do we think that, Jay? Because of the reasons we discussed in terms of what Xbox would have done with Activision Blizzard,
I
like
just
in an
think
ideal world.
people want. I think Activision Blizzard are very PC based, and I think people want to be able to have that um, on console too. They want to be able to make sure that everything is just shared. People are willing to want to share things, and Sony aren't. Sony's that kid that doesn't want to share, and Xbox is the kid that does. And Sony don't have very good parents. It seems like they didn't teach their kid right, did they? Sounds like it's all bloody a load of what's the word? Begins with A. I can't even think of the bloody word. I can't even think of it.
What word are you trying to think of, mate?
Hang
Take
on.
his heads off.
Wait.
What word are you trying to think of? Well, I don't mean the actual word. Roughly. What context are we saying here?
I don't know. I
All
can't
right.
even think of it.
No worries, mate.
Too tired.
I get it.
Tired to think of it.
I get it.
Brain is fried.
So on the strategy, Jay, of Xbox moving forward, obviously we know they're doing a subscription service, and we know that we want Xbox on the TV, and we want a stick probably or whatever.
What?
And apparently
we
there's the rumor, the stating that look, we'll always make a console as long as people buy a console, sort of thing. But in my opinion, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm confused. You were talking about Xbox on the TV on a stick. What does this mean?
As in Xbox moving from a console to a subscription service. So like you go on the Xbox app, or you go on the Xbox PC app, or basically being an app over a console sort of thing.
So basically turning into Stadia is what you're talking about.
Right. But
I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
No, sure, but I think that's what the strategy is, weirdly.
Hope not.
Well, apparently it's a multi sort of a multi-road strategy. But
so they'll do both. They'll do console and
right.
cloud.
But my concern, Jay, is that despite my praises for the Series X and its awful name, my concern is that if you take or share resources, or split resources, or divert resources into we need a team to develop the TV app as well. Will the core
you get a lesser product?
Right, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you get a weaker product. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, you definitely don't want to divert resources. You want to keep all your eggs. Well, not necessarily all your eggs in one basket. You want to make sure you've got enough resources in one place. Because if not, you're just going to have a lesser product. Yeah, no, I can understand that.
And
yeah,
I know you've talked about
the worry.
I know you've talked about this, Jay, with PSVR 2 as well. But don't you just feel there's a lot of overcomplication with the gaming industry right now? Just make a great game on great consoles. Like, just
do one thing, do it well. Like even Phil was saying about Nintendo, they've got the thing they do and they do it well. Learn from that, dude. You're in third place. You're trying to take advice from the people in second place. Just do that then. Do one thing and do it well. Stop trying to do like 3 or 4 different things at once. Like I think they're obviously trying to like again, it was just throwing loads at the wall and seeing what sticks. The problem is if nothing sticks, then what do you do then?
Right.
Just make it something sticky so you know it sticks. They're throwing non-sticky shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. Just make one thing sticky, and it will definitely will. Weird. That's what I don't know.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about in regards to this
With
interview,
that,
Jay? Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that was pretty much it. I think we covered all the main points. I think that
I
I
feel
guess
good.
the last thing is just that Phil was. They kept saying how Phil was in a bad mood the entire time. Basically saying about how Phil's cranky just because of the bad release for Redfall and all the shit he's been getting online, and then obviously all the deal not going through. So rightfully so, he should be in a bad mood. But yeah, which I guess was good. I think this might have been one of the most human interactions with the gaming industry we've ever had. It's never ever been this close to home, I guess. Like it's never been this, true, in quotes, true. You'd never ever get Jim Ryan talking like that about Sony ever.
Yeah, agreed.
You'd
Agreed.
never ever get who's the bloody guy at Nintendo?
Miyamoto? Is it Miyamoto?
Yeah, you never get Miyamoto, or you isn't the US guy Bowser?
Yeah,
Isn't that
Doug
yeah?
Bowser. Yeah.
You'd never get Doug Bowser talking about that either. You might have got Reggie talking about it potentially, but I don't think you'd get Doug.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
very, I think that's one thing I can say that's positive about this whole thing is that this is probably the best communication we've ever had with Xbox ever about anything, and hopefully it stays that way. But if honestly, it feels more like a out of desperation thing. It's like a massive damage control, but it's actually done a fairly decent job of it. You know.
Totally.
So yeah, because I know Blizzard specifically have had with Overwatch have been the most communicative they've ever been with Overwatch ever, and it's helped the game massively. They actually take in feedback. They've improved the game massively since launch. I think if Xbox sticks to that, like they take feedback and actually tell us they're taking it, and they've heard what we've said, it might relieve us and us to actually believe in what they're going to do for the future.
Well, on that note,
Communication
Jay,
is key, man. It really is.
I had a question for you, Jay, because I appreciate everything you're saying, but my concern
Uh
about Phil
oh. Uh oh.
doing, but how it, well, but my concern about Phil doing an interview like this, and I respect that they booked it before
Uh
all
oh.
the
I think I
rest
know
of
what you're
it,
going to say.
is that there is an element of leadership. Maybe you should just go be busy with what you need to be busy with rather than,
Yeah,
and I
rather
know
than
it
letting
doesn't
us know
necessarily,
about it, I think there's a balance. I think there really is a balance there.
and I get that, right? Like maybe he
Yeah.
took a half an hour at the end of his work or whatever. I'm not trying to dictate how the head of Xbox spends his time. I'm just saying that I actually wonder whether communication is key, Jay, with certain
Mm,
products, and I mean video games, right?
yeah.
What I'm hesitating about now is I again appreciate what you're saying about this open leadership that Xbox has, and they're always going on podcasts, and it's great for us to talk about. I'm now actually thinking maybe you should be a bit more like PlayStation, not necessarily the "you're not one of us" type mentality, but maybe in a sense of just go do the thing, just go do the thing. You know what I mean?
How do we know they're doing the thing if they don't tell us they're doing the thing?
Exactly,
Exactly.
because they're not telling, because we're like, what else could they be doing?
I guess you're basically coming from the standpoint of ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah.
If we don't know what's happening, then it must all be fine.
Well, I do get a bit of comfort in that. I'm not suggesting that
Yeah,
the
no,
PS5
I agree.
generation
I
will
know
be
what you're going to
amazing,
say.
but I do get a bit of comfort in that PlayStation only talk to us when they want to, if that makes sense.
Honestly, I understand where you're coming from. Like my faith in Sony, I don't think hasn't faltered ever. I don't think.
Well, I mean, you look at the generations, maybe start a PS3 and that's it, right? Like,
Yeah, PS3 wasn't great, but in terms of the last 14ish years since the beginning of PS4, like yeah, I haven't really thought to myself, "God, Sony aren't doing that well, are they?" I think the only time I've ever thought that is when they got hacked, and even then I was kind of like, "Well, they fixed that pretty quick anyway." So,
right.
but I've never thought to myself, "Wow, Sony really aren't doing very well. They should probably fix that." But with Xbox, it seems like a constant. It feels like they should probably do something about that. But yeah, it's funny. Like there is like a middle ground somewhere. I imagine where can you imagine if they just put out like if Xbox just put up a thing on their Twitter saying like a mini blog post being like, here's what's going on, here's what we plan to do, try to keep us to it, and then they either don't or do it. I think they what's the fallout from that, right? Whereas if Sony never say anything and something bad happens, then there wasn't the expectation of being a good thing. So I think that's probably more to your point. And if they say nothing and something goes wrong, well, then there was no expectation in the first place. But if they say something and it goes right, then it's a bigger of a gamble. It's more of a payout if the gamble goes through. And I think Xbox are just constantly doubling down, and they're losing each time. So let's say they started out with 100 grand, they're now on like negative a mil, and they're now having to bet a mil just to get it back. They're having to bet bigger each time, and because they're betting bigger, whenever they fail, it's much more of a dip each time. Whereas Sony never have to bet because they're consistent.
All right, Jay, are you okay for us to move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it.
Jay, next up, I want to get your temperature check. We joked about this right before we started recording. I want to get your temperature check.
37 degrees?
Roughly? Bravo. Nothing like the British sense of humour. What is your take on Armored Core 6 right now? What are we saying?
Oh, yeah, you did ask me about that. Initially,
we've had the gameplay trailer out now, right?
So. Yes, before the gameplay trailer, it was a percentage chance of me buying it, 25%. Now it's like soft 60.
Okay.
It looks fucking awesome. I kind of want to see more. This might be one of those things where I don't buy it day one. I just wait a bit and be like, right, I'll get it once I know I'm happy. Once I've seen Max play it, I'll be like, right, now I know. We'll see.
Do you not think it might be? Though. Do you not think it might be one of those games that you watch other people play, or?
Yeah, it could be. It could be a Resident Evil type situation where I just appreciate it from afar, which is fine. I think it's like watching a movie.
Mm-hmm. In terms of Armored Core 6J, I actually thought that I agree with you. I actually think the trailer has 2 viewings, right? I think you can look at it. Are you still there? Yeah, you're still there. Yeah, I think you can look at it and say the game looks amazing. I think you could also look at it and go, that could literally be any mech game on any platform in the last 2 generations.
Not necessarily. I actually thought the graphics were kind of really, like, good for FromSoft.
I guess I agree with you. I guess all I'm trying to convey is that I think that a mech game in general looks kind of very general, if that makes any sense.
Okay, let's put it this way. I think this is the best mech-looking game ever.
Yeah, I think I'll give you that. Give you that. Yep.
I will say the soundtrack for that trailer, amazing. The visuals for that trailer, amazing. The amount of I feel like FromSoft just have this pedigree now where they could release anything and I would fall in love with it. It would make me want to get it. Like they're probably the best at selling their games because they had an interview right after that as well with one of the lead developers, and they were like going on about how you don't actually. This is like a whole new story. You don't need to have played any previous Armored Core to understand what's going on. It's entire they've basically made this game for newcomers. They've been like, yeah, we want an audience for Armored Core again. Like we want to make sure people who have played our Souls games understand that by the way, we made these before. We're making a brand new one. If you want to get into it, this is probably going to be your best chance of getting into it. This is probably the most accessible Armored Core game you could potentially play. That's basically what they were trying to sell it as. And to me, I was sold. I was like, yep, I understand where you're coming from. I know, I could see the vision. I'm there with you.
And do we know how Souls-like it'll be yet, Jay, at all? Or is it more of a mech
hardly
game?
At all. It's a mech game, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it looks good. I'll see how it goes. Right, there's a lot to play at the moment.
I think it'll be. It's August, right? So there's actually quite a few Game Pass games I think coming out later in the year, like July, August. So I'll probably be playing those instead.
Sure.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not really in the mood for buying a game. I've pretty much already blown my budget for this year. So I'm the last of my budget is being spent on Final Fantasy, Spider-Man, and Starfield. Although Starfield is Game Pass, so I probably won't buy that.
Please don't.
Yeah, no, that's Game Pass, isn't it?
But the other two sound good to me. Yeah, okay, fine. Well, yeah, like you say, Jay, FromSoft are just so good at the moment. You can't not be intrigued about this game, I think, right? So
it's amazing. Yeah, like you really. Yeah, they're one of those companies now where you just look at it and go, yeah, you've been good. Like you haven't let us down. So let's go. What's the next thing? Bring it on. Like it's something to look forward to every time now.
It really is. And I feel, Jay, like they're one of the only developers who, for whatever reason, can put out games that don't take 6 years.
It's Japan, man. They know what they're doing. They've been ahead of the curve for decades. Always have been.
It's true.
Japan ahead
Apart
of the
from the
curve
war.
in most industries nowadays. Honestly,
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, it's a great
I
time
mean
to be alive.
they've basically killed the comic industry in America or the Western civilization with anime and or manga, I should say. Manga is outselling comics to more than it ever has over the last decade.
Wow. I will say, Jay, obviously we were talking about last time we recorded, we were talking about what sort of game would I actually buy brand new. I already said this, but Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy 16, probably more Final Fantasy 16 at this point of recording. Like, because I have such faith in having a good time with that game. I just like
It's funny.
we love Final Fantasy 13 and 15, which aren't even considered that good in this by other people. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Yeah.
imagine
I'm still not 100% sold on 16. Not
Okay,
100%. I'm like 90% of the way there.
I
Maybe even
can't wait.
85, 80. I'm still going to get it, but there's something about it that it just feels too.
Right?
No, I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel quite right yet. But that's the thing. I felt the same way about 15 for the longest time, but the story melted me, dude.
Mm.
And then the combat, once I finally understood how it worked, it just destroyed me. I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah,
So as
totally.
long as it's anything like that, I'll be happy.
I think as well, Jay, it feels so different from that generation of Square Enix, right? Because Final Fantasy 15, as you know, was a 10-year development cycle. 7
Mm.
Remake had some hitches along the way. So that was like a questionable period for Final Fantasy. We're now in a renaissance, arguably a complete golden age of Final Fantasy with
Uh,
7 Remake, with Final Fantasy 16 around the corner, with Rebirth on the way, and the
yeah,
Pixel
okay.
remaster selling 2 million copies, which we didn't have in the news as well. I think, whoa, dude.
Yeah, I still think there's an untapped thing there with Final Fantasy. I think they could do more
But perhaps
in terms of remaking their previous ones. I think if they remade Final Fantasy 1 through 6 and then did 8, 9, maybe not 10, maybe just 8 and 9, and remade them like they have done with 7, I think they'd sell so much.
they would.
People would kill for them.
I'm not sure how many resources they have to do that, Jay.
Well, you got to think like I think they will do that. I think Resident Evil will do that. They'll remake 5. They won't remake 6. They'll remake 5, and then they'll concentrate on making sure they get the rest of the Resident Evils out, and they'll probably do some offshoots. But I think, like how companies should think, they should release them slowly and do the good job. They should do one at a time. It should be like a minimum 4 year release cycle. Like spend 4 years on making a remake, and then do that every 4 years forever, and you'll be set.
To be fair, I could see a cycle where we get a 7 remake and then a Final Fantasy 1 and 2 or a 1, and then we get another 7 remake and we get I can kind of
This
see
might
how that
actually
could
be
work.
the complete. This is like so contradictory, but in movies, people hate remakes. They don't want to see sequels of classic movies, right?
I'll
Nobody
contend
wants.
that. I'll contend that.
I feel like okay, in most instances, nobody wants to see
Okay,
Back to the Future 4.
sure.
You know,
Ghostbusters.
whereas I really, really badly want a Persona 3 and 4 remake. I really, really badly want a Final Fantasy 1 through 6 and then 8 and 9 remake. I would kill for those. Like just because they're so old now, they need it. Like
And they
allow this
sell
new
well.
audience to fall in love with it. Someone like me isn't going to go back and play 1 through 6 just because of how it is. Like I'm not. I'm not doing it. I don't care. I don't care. I'm just not.
I'm not putting myself through that.
It's not to my standards. It really isn't. It has to look a certain way for me nowadays.
Well,
And I think most people are like that.
in that context, Jay, I don't think me and you would have any issue really on not watching a 70s film because it's made in the 70s. I think we do have an issue playing fucking Pong for 3 hours, So
Yes,
games age
true.
worse than movies, right? So
They really a hell of a lot more. Just because I think movies have been around a lot longer.
totally.
Movies have been around since what, the late 1800s,
Think so,
whereas
pretty much.
games have only been around since the late 60s, early 70s.
If not later
And
than that, right? So
yeah, we're probably talking more like late 70s, early 80s. Like. So Yeah, games aren't that old. They're what, like 60 years old max,
Mm.
63-ish. So they're really not in comparison. They haven't had as long of a time to. I mean, they've gotten better than movies, or as good as movies, if you ask me, in a shorter period of time, just because of the way technology works. What were we even talking about? I can't remember what the beginning of the conversation was.
Armored Core 6 was the original conversation.
Sure, let's on to the
And then
next thing.
FromSoft being great, and then Japan being
Yeah,
great. That's all.
Japan. They're just ahead of it. They know what they're doing.
Jay,
Follow
if it's
Japan.
all right with you, I would very much like to talk about my topic for this week and what I've been playing, and then we'll
Please
obviously move on
do.
to your, because I think yours is bigger, to be fair. So
We'll see.
we'll see. So let me go through, Jay, this huge list of games that I've got.
Yeah, yours
and
is ridiculous, dude.
it's good though.
It's funny because you haven't been on Xbox for like a week.
This is true.
Because the last achievement you got was like 9 days ago on the Witness.
I've been taking a bit of a break, to be fair. I have been
It's a
on
good thing.
PlayStation
Honestly,
a
it's
little
probably a
bit,
good
but
thing.
yeah.
Oh, that's why. I forgot you had a PlayStation.
Yeah,
So-
no, but I even that I haven't been on that much, so I have been
sure,
taking a bit
sure.
of a break. Yeah, I have felt like I just want to take a bit of a break, and I'll only play when I
Good
really,
thing.
really want to. So
Yeah.
there's that. So the reason I've got all these games, Jay, is that I want to give you a quick, fucking rapid fire. Here's why I've uninstalled these games. I think you'll be really happy.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's interesting.
All right, so
didn't see that coming.
COD 3. So as you know, Jay, I've been playing all the old CODs. COD 3, I don't know if you remember, is actually fucking broken, and it doesn't play very well at all. And I know
True.
that it's probably that at the time it was a next gen COD, and it got at least me and my brother into COD. I don't know about you, but it got us into majorly into COD, and obviously COD 4 went from there. But COD 3 is actually a really broken game. The graphics are good, but it's really broken. So I just thought, fuck it, I'm not playing a broken game on Veteran.
I didn't realize it was broken. I'd never had any issue with anything necessarily. What was so broken about it?
Bugs, glitches, gameplay.
I've never had any of those issues. Or maybe I didn't.
Jay, when is the last time you played that game?
About a decade ago,
Right.
maybe longer.
So
And it would have been on the 360.
I
probably.
promise you, if you play it, you will have issues. I didn't think I had any issues either, Jay. Trust me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Trust me.
Yeah, I've never really. I don't even know if I knew what a bug was when I was playing it for the first time.
That might be part of the problem. Not you. I just mean that
I
maybe
just
we were
thought
used
that's how
to them.
games were.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Next up, I played
Ignorance is
Sackboy's
bliss.
A Big Adventure with L because it was a free game on PS Plus.
Your
And I
Big
wanted
Planet.
to check it out. It's like a platformer launch game. I tell you what, Jay, if I was a kid and I got a PS5 and this was my launch title, I'd be so over the moon. Just gonna put that out there.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'd be like, parents, what the fuck? PS5, you didn't get me God of War. You didn't get me Bloodborne. You didn't get me Final Fantasy. Guys, what are we doing? Amateurs. Fuck out of here. What are you talking about?
I was thinking more as a 4 or 5-year-old, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, same.
Brilliant. All right, awesome. So I tried it out with L. It's a good game, but
Okay.
yeah,
It was like a co-op thing you did with him.
yeah, you can do 4-player co-op, I think, actually, which is pretty cool. But we're not
I think
feeling
we're
platformers, and
playing
unless
it.
it's Spyro, I'm just not interested, to be honest with you.
It's platformers dead.
Yeah, I guess so.
What was the last good platformer
Crash 4,
before that?
Crash 1. No, Spyro probably.
Sure, I don't even know.
I don't know, bro.
I guess Mario Galaxy, is that what
Oh
it's called?
yeah, or
Is that a
Super Mario
platformer?
Odyssey, maybe. Would that
Odyssey?
be?
That's what I was thinking about, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's gone. Jake, Code Vein, a game I tried out because it was a free game on PS Plus. Dude, that game is broken and bad.
It's not great.
You played it?
I've played it. I bought it on sale for like a $5 or something.
Dude,
that was a
that
mistake.
I was very disappointed with that game. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, not great.
Next up, there's a game called 1111 Memories Retold, which is a game made by the creators of Wallace and Gromit.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to check it out. It was a game on PS Plus, and I wasn't in the mood. It's a first-person, story-driven, episodic, narrative-driven game. And I'm not commenting on the quality of the game. I just was not in the mood for it. So
Yeah, understandable.
Kingdom Hearts, Jay, I have come to terms with the fact that the boat has set sailed. I didn't ever finish the first game, and there is too much,
Yeah,
and I'm not getting
it's
involved.
tough. It's tough to play, I will say. Kingdom Hearts is probably one of the hardest games to get into. It really is. You either have to be a hardcore Disney fan, or I don't think you necessarily need to be a hardcore Final Fantasy fan to even like it. I just think you just need to be a really, really hardcore RPG fan, JRPG fan. And even then, it's difficult, to be honest. It's just one of those games
It's a
that just
shame.
takes too much mental brain power sometimes.
It's a shame, Jay, because it's one of those where it's a bit like Nintendo in that I wish the game was as good as the music.
Yes. Yes. I think you could probably argue that for even most Final Fantasy games, to be honest.
Perhaps,
Perhaps, yeah. I think
For
the
sure.
best thing about most Final Fantasy games is the music.
Yeah, I
Same
think
as Zelda. Best thing about Zelda is the music.
100%, bro. 100%.
That's Japan for you, I guess. They're just really, really good at making music.
Totally.
Orchestral, classic music.
Totally. So that's that. The next game is an interesting game, Jay, that I actually played for probably about a couple of hours, maybe an hour and a half. Kena Bridge of Spirits. You know this game?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know how much you know about it, but it is essentially a PS2 game made for the PS5.
Many such cases, yeah.
Which
Seems
isn't
to be a bit of
always a bad
trend.
thing, in just the way it plays.
I mean, that's probably just like a new developer trying to make their way in by starting somewhere, you know?
Exactly right. It's
Always
exactly
got to start
that.
somewhere. Much like Arcane Austin, you know, you got to start somewhere.
That is exactly what it is. So, so they made it. I tried it out, Jay, and I really like the spiritual element of the game, and I like the way the game comes across. The music's great. It looks beautiful. In a world where I would have bought this brand new, I probably would have played it, to full completion. But at the moment, I was on master difficulty, and the combat was just too basic for me, Jay, to really enjoy it. And I didn't like the game enough to, as you say, Jay, and reflected on what you told me, justify my time in playing it. So
I'm glad you brought that up, actually. I was going to say something about that, about how buying a game with your money makes you want to play the game more versus a game that you get on Game Pass. Like, I feel like had I bought Redfall, I probably would still be playing it. Just because of the fact I spent the money already, you know? There's no going back from that versus having spent nothing on it, being like, yep, I can just throw this away and never come back. Easy. Yeah, money really does make you want to play it.
completely agree, Jay. Like you say, games on sale is slightly different in that I won't feel the need to complete it just because I've got it for £8, But like you
It depends on
say,
the game. If the game's good, then yeah. If it's not, then
oh,
yeah, don't
dude,
worry
of
about
course, dude, Bloodborne was no question. It was just no
it. Yeah,
question.
it's
Even
a
if it
top
was,
10 game of all time.
sorry,
It's a top 10 game of all time. Bloodborne.
exactly right.
It
So,
really is.
so there's no question. But as I say,
One of the greats.
I think that's something where I think my brother falls down on sometimes if he's listening.
Okay.
In that he'll play a free game because it's free, and I'm like, play it because you like
said
it.
before.
In my opinion,
I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle on that, as is the Goldilocks way of things.
as is the Goldilocks way.
If a game's free, I won't play it because it's free, but I'll give it more of a go.
Sure.
You know, I'll be like, oh, this is free, so I'll give it a go. But if it's not, it's just like a good test. It's a good middle ground.
Next game, Jay.
What's next?
The Last Guardian.
Remind me what that is again.
So that's the game made by the Shadow of Colossus people with the bird
I
dog.
knew it was something to do with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the game was delayed for 10 years. Fame infamously came out in 2016 and didn't actually perform that well, particularly critically and commercially.
Games that people have been waiting for that tend not to.
So Dead Island 2, I have you there, son.
And Cyberpunk, yeah.
And Cyberpunk. But yes, generally speaking. So, Joe, I want to try this game out. Els played and completed it. He recommended I try it out. Obviously, Shadow of the Colossus I adore. And I wanted to see what this game was like. played it for 20 minutes, and was like, nope, this game is broken,
Is it more of
not
a
fun.
not in the mood, or just not in a good game, or a mixture?
The
So I feel like
amount
much like location, location, location. For me, it's all about mood, mood, mood. Mood is the gaming version of location, location, location. It really is. It's
the
all
amount
about how
of
you're feeling at the time.
time, effort, and thought it wanted
Yeah,
me to put
too
in
much brain power you
for the
put in.
result was not worth it.
Yeah, that is my problem with most games nowadays. It just requires too much of you. Yeah, which is weird because some games I'll look at and think, oh, that takes way too much of an effort, and then I'll come back to it like 3 years later and be like, okay, I could do this now. I'm ready. Like Days Gone was that for me. I
Sure.
bought the game, started playing it an hour. I was like, nope, this is way too much for me right now. Came back to it 3 years later, and it's one of my favorites now.
Sure.
So one of those things.
Yeah.
Not
100%.
always the case, but rarely does happen.
And I am trying to get a bit more in the flow in life in general, following
Yeah.
our conversation. So, yeah. Mafia, the Definitive Edition. Jay, loved Mafia 2. Didn't play Mafia 3.
Mafia 2 is the best one. Difficult. Again, one of those ones where I have it. I've attempted to play it about 5 times and still cannot get past the tutorial, the prologue. I can't.
Mafia
get
3,
beyond it.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I just cannot. Is there something about the controls for the game that it bugs me?
Well, I know my cousin played and finished Mafia 1, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm sure that's a story, and that is a game I never got to play, and I do fancy playing Mafia 2 10, 15 years ago, whenever the hell that was. Started playing it. The remake is amazing, Jay. They did it really is like a massive overhaul of the whole game. But it's just one of those things, Jay. The game is, however old, it looks better. The story's great, but I just don't fancy playing an old game. I don't really know what to say. It's an open world game from 2005 or whenever it came out. I just don't fancy it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Next up. Oh no! I don't want to talk about this. Get rid of that. Next up, Jay, Mirror's Edge.
Great game.
Maybe you can advise me on this.
Sequel at some point.
Sure. Jay, Mirror's Edge is a game that I never played properly, and I wanted to give the time
I played it pretty
was due. Again, I know I sound like a broken record. I don't really care. Following our conversation, I looked at it. I respect it. I've missed the boat. It is what it is. Move on.
I don't know. I feel like Mirror's Edge is a lot like Portal. It has the same vibe to me, in the sense that you can get through that game in about 20 minutes if you speedrun it. But if you don't know what you're doing and you take the time to try and figure out the puzzle of the game, it can take a couple hours and it's pretty fun.
Would you argue it's a puzzle game?
You kind of have to be in the mood for. It's a parkour puzzle game, yeah.
How interesting.
Pretty much. It's much like Portal, where you just have to the position of things, you have to sort of dictate angles and stuff. It's all much the same. I really think if you had told me that who made Portal, was it Valve?
Yeah.
If you had told me Valve had made Mirror's Edge, I'd have believed you.
Sure.
I'd have been like, oh, that makes total sense. To me, Mirror's Edge should have just been Portal, in that they should have had secret Easter eggs throughout the game, where if you took a different path, you could find a secret area or something. That would have made the game 10 times better.
Well, interesting you talk
and
about.
They should have done a sequel that was like Portal 2, where they made it even more weird. It was just
sure.
Genius.
Rather than open world, yeah.
Just go super alien with it,
I totally get the vibe thing, and I totally get the puzzle thing. But to be honest, Jay, I actually finished Portal 1 when I was at uni, I think, and at that time, I sort of played it because I got told I should, but I don't get as much satisfaction from the puzzle thing as maybe I should.
You haven't played Portal 2 yet, now?
No.
Portal 2 is a different game.
Okay.
It's the same game, but infinitely better. It is probably one of the only instances where the sequel is infinitely better than the first one.
Okay.
Much like Mafia 2. I'm not joking when I say this. Portal 2 is probably one of my favourite puzzle games of all time.
Sure.
the story is so much better. There's actually a story to it. Like it's
Yeah.
like it feels more like a single player game than an actual puzzle game. It feels a lot. It has that sort of like very isolated, but is it the Stanley Parable? You ever played that or seen that?
Yeah, the choice one.
Where
Is
it's
that...
very meta,
Yeah.
like that, and subliminal or whatever it's called. Like it's that sort of vibe where you sort of feel like you're on your own, but you've got it's almost, it feels like you're playing the Truman Show, but you're inside of a game that you have to get out of. It's kind of it feels like you're in Truman Show, but you know the entire time you're in Truman Show,
Sure.
and you're trying to escape basically. It's so
Well, look,
meta. It's honestly, you should play Portal 2. It's genius.
I'll think
It's a
about
must.
it.
Honestly, I
but
think if I had to give you a list of 10 games that every gamer should play, Portal 2 is on that list.
Fine.
10
Well,
games, and we're talking about of all time.
that moves us on to The Witness, Jay.
It's up there. I really want to
Did
play
what
that
you
game.
said.
Witness, so bad.
Used a guide.
Good. I saw that
Do
you
not
started to get
regret it,
achievements,
Jay,
so that's
because
good.
if I didn't, I'd be
Good.
on this game for 200 hours, dude.
Yeah, probably.
Oh my god.
How much does that game cost? Is it like 20 quid still?
I have no
I
idea.
think it's more than that, isn't it? It's like 30 quid. Oh,
I
God.
have
If
no
that game
idea.
came out on Game Pass, I'd be playing that instantly.
But
I really badly want to play that.
I think you'd enjoy it, Jay. But I have actually looked at a few
I know I would.
videos, right, which sort of break down the game and their thoughts on it in today. And I'm sure you know, but the game when it came out was critically lauded, right? It was like 10 out of 10s across the board, right? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
Like
people
the
loved it.
perfect
Yeah, I remember.
puzzle game, like a bit like Portal 2, really. But
Yeah.
I will say, Jay, there is a few issues with the game in its thinking, and maybe the developers would come back and say, well, blah blah blah. But ultimately, there are a few bits where I'm like, so like most of the game, I sort of like get why you should put that together from this and why you should remember that and you should write this down. I get that, but there are some leaps in no logic which the game expects you to find out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so they do that for challenging purposes.
Sure, it's
called
just
a
not very
challenge.
fun. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, you know what? It's funny. I know exactly what you mean, because I kind of had that in Redfall a little bit. There was actually times where the game didn't tell you anything. So actually, it's kind of a level like it in Jedi too. There was like times where the game just didn't tell you what to do next, and it was kind of like, well, what do I do now? Is the game expecting me just to figure it out? I don't really understand. And I agree, it's not very fun when that happens. And weirdly, actually, when I was watching that podcast from 5 months ago with Todd Howard, he was even talking about that, how like trying to get the balance between showing what telling the game what to do next versus leaving certain things to interpretation. Like you have to get the right balance of that. And yeah, some games just they can't quite get it right and they overdo it or underdo it. So yeah, because there's even like a good example being like God of War, where is it Atreus? Is that the boy's name?
Yeah.
Where he'll like shout out what you need to do next, but very like you could be stuck on a puzzle for like 30 seconds and he'll shout out the answer, and it's like, hang on, give me a minute, I want to figure it out, kind of thing. And that's like that was probably one of the biggest gripes for God of War, and I feel like that's like that in a lot of games now, where like if you've got like a companion, they'll just tell you what to do next, which I think is good, but it shouldn't be as quick as it is sometimes. Like that again, it's just all about the balance.
And I think a simple solution for that is just putting it in the options menu, right? Just like companion
or just
hints
having it
off.
be like a button, because they do that in Jedi actually. If you want a hint what to do next, if you hold down the BD button, he'll then give you a hint as to be like, probably check out this spot.
Oh,
he never
that's
ever
nice.
tells you. You have to hold the button down specifically for it. So
That's cool. I like that.
I think that's
that.
probably a better option, I'd say.
But to be honest, Jay, like I know it might sound weird to some people out there, but I'm I'm really glad you told me to use a guide, because I actually had a really good time going through the game with the guys.
Thank you. People don't realize how much fun using a guide actually can be.
Like, it removes the stress, the anxiety,
100%.
And I still tried a few puzzles on my own. Like, I genuinely did. Like, if I felt like I could do it, I would have done it. But like, I'm not gonna sit there, and I know some people will get pleasure from writing out on a piece, but like, fuck, nah, bro, nah.
Yeah, sometimes you just want a bit more of a relaxing time. Even though you're playing a stressful game, you want to be relaxed while you're playing a stressful game. Like, people come home and de-stress while playing COD. It's pretty stressful.
Right.
You know? So
Kevin
I don't
Spacey's
think there's a
character in House of
correlation
Cards.
there. Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I completed it, Jay. I finished it. Yeah. No, I didn't.
Oh, the
No, I
whole
didn't.
thing?
No, I did every
Jesus.
area apart from the last area because I thought, fuck that. So I basically finished it. I
Dude, how can you
uninstalled
get
it.
finish the last area? Are you kidding me?
Nah, Jay, because there's like auto-generated
Oh
puzzles and stuff.
god.
So like,
Oh,
nah.
okay. So is it like not fully? Is it you finished the campaign? Is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying the last area of the campaign, like some puzzles that I'd be stuck on, I wouldn't be able to figure out because they're auto-generated.
Right, they're procedural.
They're procedural,
Right, so they're random, as in
and I
there's no
didn't
guide
fancy
for them.
that. So
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I can
I
understand
did
that.
every area in the game apart from the final area,
Fair enough.
and I stopped there.
You hit the wall.
I did
Fine.
hit the wall. Jay, this very last game of this long list, you might be a little bit sad to hear about.
Mm,
But we have been playing Wolong together a little bit.
we have a little bit, yeah.
I've checked it out on your recommendation. I've been playing it quite a bit. I've been listening to the Metallica album while playing it, and Evanescence actually. I've been having a good time. I like the parry system. I like the gameplay. I think the game looks amazing.
Satisfying, yeah.
I love playing it with Jay. And Jay's been a bit busy recently, and I've actually realised, Jay, again, I'm enjoying it. I'm not enjoying it enough to finish it properly. I feel like I've had my taste, I've had my flow until
How many
you come
hours
to
you
a
put into
place
it,
where
roughly?
sorry,
How many hours you put into it, roughly?
I want to say
Like
10 to
20?
15, maybe 20,
Okay, so you're about halfway. Okay,
maybe 20.
that's fair.
But unless you were like, Nick, I really want to play it with you, I will probably
Yeah.
leave it, to be honest.
I mean, I feel like I've already put in my 50 odd hours or so. So
You have.
I mean, there's potential DLC coming, so I haven't got rid of it yet. But yeah, tend to not get rid of my games very easily, just in case. So we'll see on that one. But yeah, I'm a bit woe-longed out at this point, I think.
Don't blame you. Don't blame you. If
Yeah,
you're a
takes a
die-hard
while.
fan of that genre, which some people are, I get why it would, satisfy the need following Elden Ring. But yeah,
Yeah,
just not
I
for
think
me.
Wolong's fairly shallow in comparison to a lot of other Souls-like games, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's like simple but good in that way.
And at the moment, Jay, I am playing Dark Souls Remastered.
The first one, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. How are you finding it so far? How far are you in?
I am in the. I'm about to get to Nito.
Doesn't really
The
mean much to me
big
anymore. It's been a
skull
while.
thing.
Okay, I
Massive
think I know what
skull
you mean.
thing. In the dark. I'm
Yeah,
in the
sure.
dark. Everything is dark, and there's lots of skeletons, and I'm in the dark.
Everything is dark. That's hilarious.
I've got the Lord Vessel. I'm going after my first Lord Soul, if that helps.
Okay, yeah, that helps. Wow,
Um,
wow. I couldn't even imagine playing Dark Souls 1 nowadays. Jesus Christ.
well, I'll be honest, Jay.
That feels like 20 years ago. It's getting close to it, honestly.
Yeah, it's true.
What was it, 2009?
I think so, yeah.
2008, 2009? So in 5 years, it will be 20 years old? Jesus Christ. Oh my God, that's scary to think about. Right,
So, yeah, so it's funny, actually, Jay, because I have played it patchy, but I'm trying to play it concentrated now. But as soon as I started playing it again, I was like, yeah, I'm enjoying this a lot more than Wolong, despite everything I just said about Wolong.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's funny how that happens, isn't it? I think a lot of it is just to do with level design too. I think
Oh, dude,
Dark
the
Souls,
level design.
Souls games they are 10 out of 10 level design.
They
That is
really
probably the
are.
reason why they've done so well, honestly.
They really are. And I was
They
wondering,
had the
Jay,
best
because
level
like
design of any game ever.
when when I'm playing it, I'm sort of like, is it just that there's so many little things that my mind is enjoying? Because I don't quite understand why I wouldn't enjoy Wolong and why I enjoy Dark Souls, if that makes sense. Like I'm literally
I
playing it. I'm like,
think it's
is it
because there's
animations?
hardly
Is it
any.
preciseness? Is it
I think there's hardly any downtime in Dark Souls in terms of like things to keep you on your toes. Whereas Wolong, there seems to be a bit more of a space in between, and it's because it's not open world in quotes. It doesn't feel as daunting, and I feel like when a game is daunting, it makes you want to find out more so that you have more control over it. Versus a Wolong, you know the missions are going to end soon, so there's no control to be had, or you have more than you You have more control over it, so there's no sort of journey you have to go on necessarily. Whereas with Dark Souls, you have to find everything. You have to have to sort of gain the courage a bit more. So it becomes more about the journey than it does the destination, which is how it should be for most games. It's about the journey, not the destination.
By the way, I am using a guide as well, and I'm loving it.
Good, you bloody should be. Jesus Christ, Dark Souls.
Oh my god!
Going into that game blind, my god.
Dude, I got through
Ooh, that'd be
Bloodborne
tough.
without a guide, but yeah, Dark Souls
That's
is a
more
whole
easy
nother
to do.
league. Whole nother
More easy to
league.
do.
Like,
I think again, Bloodborne is the most accessible Souls game of all time. It really is.
over Elden Ring.
Yes,
Okay. All right.
I think
But-
they're probably on par.
But yeah,
They're probably
dude,
on par.
some of the shit
Probably
in
the
Dark Souls is like a joke, frankly. It's like-
Yeah, there's a lot of things that if you don't know about it, you'll be like, well, do I want to keep playing this? Because it'd probably frustrate you a lot. But if you're
100%.
used to some of it, then you might be all right. I don't know. It just depends. It honestly depends on where your line is for the amount of shit you can tolerate.
It's true.
Because it's very unforgiving. Souls games in general are just unforgiving.
Jay,
But
we've had...
if you master it, it's more. It feels better.
Sure. I'm trying my best. The area I'm in at the moment is annoying me. I don't like not being able
most
to see.
areas are.
It's really
I hate it
fucking
when you can't see, or you're constantly poisoned, or you're cursed a lot of the time.
Oh my fucking god, it's
Yeah,
so annoying.
being sluggish, not being able to move, or there's a boss that is just like way too. You just cannot figure out its pattern, and it keeps hitting you in hitboxes that it shouldn't be able to, and all this kind of dumb shit. But that's what's so lovable about it. You have to conquer it, right? It's about conquering.
Yeah, I'm not sure my strategy at the moment is working with the dark thing, but I'll see how we go.
I was gonna say I never really thought too much about my build when it came to Dark Souls 1 or 2. I feel like builds only really mattered to me after like maybe 3.
How did you even get like through the game, dude?
Exactly. Yes, I don't really know.
Like you
I
literally
played
just
it
had like
so
a
well. I
long
played
sword,
it
like
with
and
no-
just fucking.
I think I had this Zweihander most of most of my
Oh, I just picked that up.
Souls experiences find the biggest great sword you can find, and just use that the entire time.
So you're
Super
you're min
slow,
maxing.
heavy, damaging hits. I'm
So-
all about great swords.
So you're min maxing your strength. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, strength and vitality is the only thing I really go for, and stamina. They're like the 3 things. You need a lot of stamina for big swords.
I love the simplicity of that strat, Jay. I really do.
Oh yeah, just do a strength build. Don't even do anything else. Just do strength, vitality, and stamina. It's the only things you really need in the game.
Mm.
You don't really need much else. Like if you're a
Love
magic
it.
build, then you're probably going to want again a lot of stamina, health, and magic. You just stick to 3 things. Keep it simple.
Yeah,
No,
no, I like it.
Souls games are not about complicated. It's all about keeping it simple.
But some people like
Like
to
you're
go
just
down
gonna
that
waste
path,
resources.
don't they? You know, like magic.
Yeah, that's for
and-
experimenting later on. But that's just make it more challenging, if anything.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll come back to you on how I get on with that. I just want to
I'd
say,
love to hear how you get on. I can't wait till you play Dark Souls 2. You're gonna
Sure.
hate it.
I'm gonna hate it.
you're gonna hate it. It's
How
so
come?
different. You'll find out.
Okay.
It's different in a bad way, but in a fun way too. I think the story is still great, and the bosses are amazing, and the level design is top notch. But there's some gameplay mechanics that are just like a massive departure, but not in a fun way.
I think I know where you're referring to, but we'll come back to that.
Probably.
I had the front and back door open because we were doing some work around the house.
This is
Mum and
odd.
Dad were down.
Okay.
And fortunately,
don't know where you're
about
gonna go with
100
this.
flies have flown through while the
I
doors have been
love that you
open.
said this. I love that you said this.
And there's a fly on my wall, and I actually want to kill myself.
Do you know what's funny? Throughout the year, I make it a point to never open windows and doors. Even during the summer, I try not to. Like, if we have the back door open and we want to get an airflow, the curtains are shut. And they are, like, taped to the wall, basically. They're, like, stuck. So if any fly comes in, it's just going to hit into the curtain. Same with the front of the house, like the kitchen window. The curtain has to be in front of it. There's no way a fly's getting in. I think last year we only had, like, maybe 4 flies the entire year.
Oh my god.
Just because I'm so good I'm trying to keep them out as best I can.
Yeah.
Like flies are my worst enemy. I'm good at killing them, but I hate it. I hate having to deal with it. It just bugs
Dude,
me.
well, it's
I
like
will not
when you go to
leave
sleep and they know
until
where your
they're
ear
dead.
is. I'm like, how? Oh, fuck.
No, I bet flies don't come anywhere near upstairs. They don't leave the downstairs area.
Okay.
We don't have any window. All the windows upstairs are closed, even during the summer. Fuck
Sure.
that.
Sure.
I mean, Mum's might be open, but mine is taped shut.
It doesn't help
Never
that I
open
haven't
that
got
thing.
any doors in the house, basically, because we're doing it, renovating it, so
Hmm.
that doesn't help
Yeah.
either.
No.
I actually
You gotta
hate
learn. You
it.
gotta learn the ways of keeping these things out, man.
Oh,
Or
I
just get a
hate
fly
it.
trap. Get a fly trap.
Venus flytrap.
No, as in like one of those sticky things that you hang from the ceiling.
Oh, sure, yeah, sure.
Either get one of those, or I think put out like a bowl of vinegar or something, like a dish of vinegar.
A bowl of vinegar
And that
does it?
works. Yeah, I think that attracts them. They just get stuck in it. They just sort of like, I don't
Oh
know.
well, I'll look up
I
some
could be
home
wrong about
remedies
that.
because I'm gonna need to do something
Yeah,
before I
do
go to bed.
something.
I think, yeah. All right, Jay, that's enough of me waffling. Now let's get to
Hmm.
your big updates of what you've been
Well,
playing.
let me start with one because we missed this last time. My
Sure.
dad, I don't know if we did even speak about it. My dad's an avid competition goer. Um, he likes to do competitions, and he won a competition, a gaming competition, to win 3 copies of Wild Hearts. The what's it called? The Monster Hunter type game.
Competitor,
And so
clone,
he thought it'd be
like.
a good idea to keep one for himself and give the other 2 to me. And then he said, if you want to give the other to Nick, you can. So I did, and then I've been playing Wild Hearts for a little while
I'm an ungrateful
before
Mark
everything
Andre.
else came out. I was like, well, I'm going to be playing this. That'll be fun. So yeah, I played that for a little while.
And how was it?
It's pretty good actually. Yeah, it's pretty, I'd say more accessible than Monster Hunter, surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah, I think maybe if had I not played Monster Hunter, I'd probably find it more difficult to play. But I almost feel like I swam before I could, or no, I ran before I could walk. Almost, I got on the deep end, as it were.
For Wild Hearts or Monster Hunter? Sorry.
Um, for like I played Monster Hunter before I played Wild Hearts, and Monster Hunter is a lot harder, I'd say, a lot less
Oh, okay,
accessible.
right, okay, got you. That makes sense. So overall, then, how far did you get? Are you still playing it? What's the crack?
Um,
Are you okay? You're looking at your
I probably
phone.
played like 20 hours
Okay.
ish, and then I was like, I think then Dead Island came out, so I was like, I'll play that from here
Okay.
on out. I'll probably come back to it. I don't know if I ever will, but it's fine. It definitely doesn't run the best, but once you get past the sort of beginning of the game, you kind of get used to it. So
It sold pretty
it's not
well,
too
didn't
bad.
it? I think.
I don't know actually. I think it must have sold okay. Hard to say. Hard to
Okay.
say.
All right.
What did I play next? Yeah, Dead Island 2. Dead Island 2 I played next. Um, Surprisingly amazing.
Well, we talked
Like
about
kind of
just we
insanely
talked
good.
about it last recording, but obviously you've played it
Did
since
we? How
last.
much did we talk about it?
Um,
Yeah, I think
fairly
I've come to realize that
extensively,
it's
I
actually
think.
like a hell of a lot better than I initially thought.
Okay.
Like it actually runs kind of amazing, you know.
It runs amazing.
Um, yeah, like I wouldn't. It didn't really drop too many frames. Like it runs 60 pretty well,
Okay.
and in pretty good resolution too. I actually saw someone made a video of like the comparison of the scans of like the graphics in the game compared to the real places in LA that they're supposed to be recreating,
Sure.
and it's honestly like pretty scary how close they get, like how graphically amazing it looks. Very very surprised. Yeah, I must have spoke about it a lot, didn't I, last time? Then I can't
Yeah,
even
you
really
did. We
remember.
we spoke about a lot of it. We spoke about the car system, the graphics, the gameplay. But obviously, since then, you
Okay.
finished it, I suppose, right?
Oh yeah, I got 1,000 G on it, which wasn't that difficult actually. I think it's funny. I all I had to get was the last thing I had to get was the co-op achievements.
You got them in the end.
Um, yeah, I got them like within like 20 minutes. It's kind of ridiculous. So one of them is to be revived 5 times by a player, and then the other one is just to do 5 quests with a player. The 5 times revive thing, I literally jumped into a game, and the first game I jumped into is one guy who just keeps dying. Also, no, the achievement is to revive someone 5 times. He just kept dying. Like he just, I don't know if he was like trying to give me the achievement. We didn't even speak to each other. He was like, we kind of like understood the agreement. Like he died 5 times, I revived him. I died 5 times, he revived me, and we are both like, right, see ya, and then just went. Like we
Huh.
kind of understood the assignment like right away. So I got very very lucky with that. If not, that probably would have took me a few hours to get, more than likely.
Sure.
And then right after that, I just sort of joined another person's game, and they were like, "Yep, let's just do 5 missions. Let's go." So that's what we
All
did.
right.
So I did it in like half an hour. It was amazing. It was very, very good.
And then, because so last time we spoke, you basically said that you had those co-op achievements, and then you had to like finish all the side quests. And I think that was pretty much it.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Okay, fine. What's next on your
Didn't take me
list?
very long. What is next? I can't even remember now. What should I do next? I guess I briefly spoke about Redfall already, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, I played that. It wasn't the best. Like, it's, again, it has something there, but I don't know. The thing that annoyed me the most about it was the fact that it had, I think, 2017 G achievements.
Oh, have you got some?
I have got some, but luckily I managed to get back that round to a 0 or a 5.
Oh,
So I sort of, like, once I got there, I was like,
God.
right, I'm not playing it anymore. I just want to finish there.
Why the fuck would they do that?
I don't know. I think they did it on purpose to keep people playing it. I think they knew that people were going to not want to play it, and if they got a funny G achievement, they were like, well, I'm going to have to do more. I'm going to have to keep playing it.
Did Deathloop
Like,
have? Did you
forcing
play Deathloop
people.
on Xbox?
Yeah, I
Or
1000 G'd that. Yeah. I didn't have any funny achievements, I'm pretty sure.
I think you played it on PlayStation, didn't you? No.
No, it was on Xbox. It was on Game Pass, wasn't it?
Oh, that's right. That's right. You did. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, if I may say very quickly, Jay, obviously someone was right about Redfall, me, and I will, I will also just say that, or ask even Jay. I'm still, after everything that's happened, I'm still not entirely sure what the game is. So, would you mind just telling me, like, is it a Borderlands game? Is it like, what is the game? Like,
Oh,
just curious, really.
what's the best way to describe it? Yeah, I'm trying to think the best way to describe it. It's a very, very short, well, actually not that short of a game. It looks short of a game from the beginning, but it's not actually. You realise you have to do like a whole other thing, which I didn't even get to in the end.
What, a bit like a Lord Vessel thing where like you think you finished the game by ringing the 2 bells and you've got like 4 more to
you
go,
literally
sort of
like
thing.
there's like you're in Redfall, and
Okay.
you're like there's not very much to do here, and you finish all of it, and you're like, well, what's next? And you end up in a different part of like a different map elsewhere, and you're like, oh my god, it's actually a whole second
Not called
part of this game.
Redfall.
Yeah, it's like a whole different name. The whole thing is really odd, which I never got to in the end, but I found out later.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. You actually get like legendary stuff like very early on.
Okay.
Like it's pretty easy to find legendary gear constantly. I think the cool thing about, which I'm kind of glad about, because I like it when games do that, because you'll get like a legendary piece at like level 8, and you can find that again at like the max level just fairly easily if you grind for it.
Sure.
So I like it that they allow you to test that kind of stuff, but it just seems very very basic, very simple. Not really much of a Borderlands game.
But like, is
It's
it an
just
RP?
very
Is it an
empty
open world
world.
RPG? Like, what is it?
Yeah, like that. You can go anywhere on the map.
Okay.
You just have to go back to base, pick a main mission.
Okay.
You'll on the way you'll find the odd side mission here and there. There aren't really that many. And then there's 6 safe houses you have to go to. Each safe house has a main mission,
Okay.
and then it has a boss mission. And then once you've done all the boss missions and the main missions, you can then defeat the main boss of the area. And then once you've done that, you then move on to the next area, and you just do that once more, and then you're done, basically.
Okay.
I honestly felt like I'd probably, by the time I finished the campaign, I wouldn't even be close to the max level. Like, you'd probably be about level 20, and the max level is level 40.
Right. Okay.
So you wouldn't even be close, which kind of like worries me. The other thing is the multiplayer doesn't really work very well.
It doesn't matchmake,
Like
or
yeah, it's kind of weird. Like remind me what it's like in Borderlands. But if I was to join you in a co-op, how would the
yeah.
progression of my campaign be?
So it changed
work
on
like
the
that, or would it
game
just
as far
be-
as but I believe Borderlands 3 was pretty much perfect in that it would, if you had the quest in your log, it would carry over progress. And I think
Yeah.
if you were at the right point in the story, it would sort of carry on. But if you went to
Yeah.
like, say, a end game world and you had a level 1 character, you would be able to fight enemies and you'd be able to do all that, but you wouldn't like you would when you got to that bit in your game.
Yeah, it wouldn't have counted. You could just do it again. Kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of that in Redfall. Like the host of the game, their progress will continue, but yours won't do
Oh,
it.
that's what they said about that before launch, didn't they? Pretty
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're sort of calling it a multiplayer game, but it isn't really. It's just a badly put together single player game.
Yeah, I have to say, Jay, in like 2023, that's pretty unacceptable, don't you think? Like,
Yeah.
we'll just spitball them. But
I'm honestly kind of just fed up talking about Redfall at this point.
okay, right, move on.
Which I never thought I'd ever say, but there we are. Let's talk about Hellblade.
Yes, please.
I played Hellblade.
Yes, you did.
I 1000G'd it in like 3 and a bit hours, I want to say. I played the whole thing following a guide.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Pretty
same.
good.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I think if I hadn't followed the guide, I probably would have found it pretty difficult. It probably would have took me at least twice the amount of time.
To find the collectibles?
No, the collectibles were fairly easy. It was just it was like some of it was like, how the hell would I figure any of this out? Like the puzzle aspect of it. Like some of it was like, how the hell? Some of it was pretty easy. Like I did most of the game on my own.
Sure.
I pretty much just did a collectible guide, but there was moments where I was watching the guy doing it. I was like, oh, I should probably watch him do this because that looks way too difficult for me to figure out. I'd say about 2/3 of the way in is when I got stuck. I was like, oh, I should probably follow what he's doing because if not, I would have never figured that out. Kind of
Did you play with headphones on, Jay?
No, but I know what you're going to say, and that I should have done because they had the sort of like voices and everything, and it was going back and forth. I kind of regretted not doing that, but my TV is good enough where I still got a similar experience.
That's cool, but it
I
is
kind of wish they'd
freaky.
put that at the beginning of the game where I said you should probably play this with headphones.
I think they do. If I'm honest
Yeah, I
with
can't
you.
know if they did or not because I remember looking at it being like, "There's probably." I remember saying to myself, "They should have put a warning here," but they didn't. So I don't know if
think they do, but I could be wrong.
Because I know a lot of games do have that, but I'm pretty sure this one didn't.
Okay.
I actually didn't know. I noticed a spelling mistake in the subtitles actually in one particular area, which I thought was quite funny. I think at the very end of the game, there should be like a. I think someone tried to say not, but it said no instead. Which I thought was quite. I just like one of those things I noticed. It was like, oh, that's a bit of a weird spelling mistake, but okay.
I was very happy to get this message, Jay, when you messaged me because obviously you know I love Hellblade. And what did you say,
yeah,
Jay?
I needed to know what the fuss was all about. I needed to know why people hyped up so much, and I was like, oh, this game's genius. I understand it. I can see why it was way ahead of its time. Graphically, Jesus Christ. Storytelling wise, holy crap. Mechanically, genius. Like the whole thing is 10. It's a 10 out of 10 game, easy. It is a 10 out of 10 game. It's not even a debate. It's phenomenal. I will say the game didn't explain the combat at all. You had to just figure it out. And funny enough, I didn't know there was a block until like my third or fourth fight. I didn't know there was a parry until my second or third.
There's parries in that game?
I didn't. Yeah. If you block at the right moment, it parries.
I'm not
Are you kidding me? You didn't parry the entire time?
I don't think I did.
So you know when they shout focus at you and it says to use your focus? I didn't know to figure that out until my fifth or sixth one. I was like, I had no idea what the fuck it is.
Okay.
But if you parry when they shout focus, it counts as the same thing.
Jesus.
Because when the enemies go into like those like smoky figures.
Sure.
Where you can't hit them until you use your focus.
Yeah.
If you parry them, it does the same thing.
Okay.
It gets them out of the smokiness.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I'm glad they did that because it made it more challenging and more fun to figure it out.
Sure.
I didn't know there was a dodge until my second or third fight. I just thought there was attack and that was it. I was so confused. I had to look up the controls again. I was like, what am I missing here? Is there something else I'm missing?
Oh, fucking hell.
But I'm kind of glad I figured it out in the end. But yeah, no, it is. I know that the game is pretty much the whole story is surrounding like mental illness, basically, isn't it? It's like a whole mental illness advocation game, which I thought was quite cool. And it actually resonated with me a lot. I've dealt with a lot of that type of stuff, the type of feelings that she's going through in some instances. And I was like, wow, this game actually gets it. The people who made this 100% have gone through some shit as well. I was like, oh yeah, they've had the similar feelings that I've had, and they understand. They get it.
They certainly do.
Wow, this game actually gets how I felt before. And I was like, oh shit, wow, okay.
They certainly do.
I was pretty happy about that. Yeah, no, it was. the fact that it was a mental illness application game, but told through a sort of Viking lens, it was quite cool. The music was pretty amazing. Sound design was great. Visuals amazing. Yeah, I actually played it in quality mode, so I didn't play it in performance mode. It didn't need it at all. There wasn't just it was perfect.
I kind of get that. I do kind of get that, to be fair.
I basically thought to myself, well, if people are boasting about the visuals of this game, I might as well play in quality. Like if I, which I'll actually the reason why I played it in quality was because of Jedi Fallen Order, honestly. So which I'll transition into.
Sure.
Unless you want to ask me some questions about Hellblade, any more questions?
Yes. Firstly, you're welcome. Secondly,
No, I didn't play it because of you. This is what happened, okay? I went through my list. I finished playing Jedi, and I was like, I'm still in the mood to achievement hunt right now. Let me go on Game Pass and see what games are really, really easy G. It'll take me maybe an hour or two.
okay.
And I didn't even think, initially I went through the games being like, well, okay, what games do I want to play that I haven't played yet? And so I picked out like 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
And then I went through the games again. I went from top to bottom and went, right, what games out of these seem like they'd probably be pretty easy G? So I picked another 2 or 3 games. And then out of like the 6 games I picked, I think I played Hellblade and a game called Genesis Noir,
Yeah. The
which again
Switch
is like a
one.
two.
No,
A
you're
what?
talking about the Game Pass one. Yeah.
Yeah, the Game Pass one, which again was like a 2 hour easy 1000 G game. I just thought, oh fuck it, I'll play that for a bit.
What was it like?
Pretty fun, puzzle game
Did you
kind of thing,
finish
but
it?
it's point and click. Yeah, I finished it in about 2.5 hours.
Did you use a guide?
Yeah,
Yeah, fair. Okay. Does
but
that
it
give you
actually
like
comes with the DLC for free as well, so you get 1210 G.
when you go through a game like that, Jay? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Yeah,
go through a
again.
game like that and you use a guide and stuff, does that give you kind of like 360 nostalgia vibes, like achievement hunting sort of thing, or?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it did. It's funny because I was following a Macca guide initially.
Okay,
That
guys.
kind of had a straight, yeah. That kind of, but his guide didn't include the DLC, so I had to go find someone else's. But yeah, it kind of gave me that sort of like early days following stuff. Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay.
So yeah, what was I talking? I was talking about Hellblade. So you want to ask me questions? Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Well, not. Oh, yeah, I do actually. Yeah. Let me just have a quick sort of moment of recollection. So I played that game probably 4 years ago now, maybe
I say,
five
when did
years
it come out?
ago.
2013?
2017.
No, fuck off.
Okay.
No, there's no way it came out that recently. Holy shit, it did. That came out in 2017. I could have swore that came out like so long ago. I could have swore it was it was like an Xbox One, like a year after Xbox One came out. Jesus Christ, that's insane. So it's only 6 years old. I mean, I say only, but all right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a kind of insane. I want to know what the actual actress. Yeah, that's what she looks like. Wow. Okay.
She does look like Senua, to be
Kind of
fair.
fell in love with the actor. It's weird. That's another thing. Her name, the way you say it, is quite interesting too. It's Senua, which is interesting. I always thought it was like Senua or something, but Senua.
Oh, well, I've been
Very odd.
saying Senua, so.
It's Senua. Yeah, it's
Okay.
weird.
Okay. Fair. Yeah, no, fair.
I know. I was very surprised. I actually liked the combat. The combat was sick too.
Yeah, the combat's great. I love the simplicity of it, Jay. Like it does have
It
that
didn't
kind of
actually
double A
get 10 out of
feel,
10.
but
It got one 10 out of 10.
oh, dude, like honestly, don't even go there. But
Hang
like,
on.
I love the space it
What?
occupies in that. It's
What?
like a triple A game that lasts like 4 to 5 hours. I think it's what
Well,
makes
you know
it
what's
really
funny?
cool.
It didn't feel like it felt like a AAA game that wasn't a AAA game. It felt almost like a tech demo, but a very, very well put together one.
Yeah, sure, like a double A game.
Because the menu super basic,
Yeah,
the game super basic. Like there
yeah,
isn't really much to it.
yeah.
Which I'm
But
kind
the
of surprised why it's taking this long to make the second one.
oh, don't
Um,
even go there. But the
I
execution on
know.
what they do
Yeah,
is.
it's spot on. Yeah.
I'm glad you
It
liked
almost
it.
felt the aspect of having to like line up the puzzle, like the stairs and everything, and like focus in on it. That felt a little bit out of place. That was probably my one gripe. I was like, that feels a bit odd. Feels a bit 360 esque.
Hmm.
which isn't a bad thing. I think it actually kind of worked in the end. But initially, I was like, that's a bit odd. It was a bit out of place. But it kind of like it kind of felt like it kind of fit in the sense that it was all kind of in her head, right?
My question,
To a
you might
degree.
want my question, Jay. My main one is that I still remember the ending of that. By the way, the ending of that game is bombastic, right?
The ending
But
is different depending on if you get all the. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. There's a secret, like 30-second extra scene that you get if you get all the collectibles.
oh sure. Also, I love the achievement list. But yeah, no. I
Yeah,
just
good
wondered, do
achievement
you
list.
think the ending for me basically says that it's all in her head? What do you think? Like what?
Yeah, no, it was pretty much all in her head. It was a mental episode, it was psychosis
Right, right.
after having lost her other half.
Whoa,
Yeah,
spoilers.
right? I mean, not really. I mean, it's pretty much the beginning of the game. You see that?
Oh really?
Yeah, pretty much. I'd
Oh
say within
okay.
like the first 20 minutes, you realise that
Dude, I still
other
remember the
half is
opening of that
dead.
game when you're on the boat, right? And you just swimming like,
Yeah,
oh, oh
yeah.
wow.
It was basically the whole idea was that obviously it was like the going over the river Styx. The ferryman kind of without the ferryman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, it kind of blew me away the first, like, my jaw was on the floor for like the first 10
Oh,
minutes. I was like,
dude, the
oh my
bit
God.
with the is it the Hellhound or the? Oh my god, it scared the
What, you mean
shit out of
Fenrir?
me. Yeah, like when it like barks at you when you're like not in light or what. Oh fucking hell, I hated that bit.
Yeah, the game was surprisingly scary.
Yeah,
You are basically in someone's, like, you're in their mental.
that scared the shit
So
out of
it's
me.
all about the imagination. Yeah, and
Now
that
that we're
was
talking about it,
scary.
Jay, I've got a feeling I either finished it in 1 or 2 nights.
Yeah, I did it in one sitting. I started it at 6 p.m. and I finished it
About
just before
10.
midnight,
Oh,
I think.
so it took you like 6 hours.
It might have been 10. I don't know. I'll have a look when I took the
It
photo.
took me
That'll tell
about
me
six
when.
hours. So
Let me check if I look at the photo, that'll tell me exactly when. So I took a photo and sent it to you, didn't I? So
it was quite late, I think.
yeah, it was very late. I took the photo just after midnight. I might have started it maybe more like 7, half 7, but even so. Yeah, I think it took me roughly 4.5, 5 hours, give or take.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
So
yeah,
I
that's
thought it was
cool.
going to be a lot shorter than that, actually. When I saw
Really?
guides online, they were like, it takes about 3 hours. I was like, fuck you,
Oh, mate,
3
those
hours.
guys suck. They're always like, yeah, the game takes like 30 hours to platinum. No, it fucking doesn't, mate.
It's
Like,
funny, people either way over it or way under it.
it's true. It's
They
true.
never ever get it close. I think the only time I've ever seen it close is that website that says how long does it take to complete a game or whatever it is.
Yeah. How long to
I
complete?
think they're probably the closest I've seen,
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Do
but
you know what
they
annoys
get
me
it
as
right
well, Jay,
not that
is
often.
when they do trophy guides. I think I've already complained about this, but they'll be like, yeah, Crash 4's like an 8 out of 10 difficult. No, it fucking
Oh,
isn't.
yeah, yeah,
Crash
yeah.
4 is
Yeah,
a 12 out of
that's all
10
subjective.
difficult. Like,
It's all subjective. It depends on your own skill.
no, it
I think
doesn't. That game is
they put it out
hard.
on averages, don't they?
Oh, just
Like, I actually think Senua is pretty difficult.
what are you
That's
chatting
another question. Did
about?
you play what difficulty did you play it on?
This was way before my Bloodborne time. I've
Yeah, so this was basically your first instance of a Souls-like.
I
This game is
think
basically a
from
Souls-like
memory, I had it on
in
normal
terms of
and I put it
combat.
down to difficult to easy. If I'm being honest with
Yeah,
you,
I played the whole thing on easy. I had to.
yeah, because some of it's quite
Because I wanted
hard,
to get.
right?
It was more about getting through it than actually, like, I didn't think the game was gonna be difficult. I just thought to myself, well, I want to finish this tonight, so I'm gonna play it on easy.
100%, hundred
You know?
percent. Yeah.
I actually forgot the game had combat until I started combat. I was like, oh shit, there's combat in this game. Oh bugger, I forgot it had it.
Well, to be
It was funny. I
fair,
think the only instance I'd ever seen of actual gameplay of the game was one person fighting like one enemy. That's the
sure,
entire thing. I didn't even know what the game was hardly about, to be honest.
sure.
I went into it completely blind, which is funny after a game that's been out for 6 years and widely loved. You know, I
But that's
literally
a
went to
good
it so
thing, I
blind.
think. I think
Oh, dude, if
you're
I'd
better
gone
off
to this not
for it.
blind, it would have killed me. Yeah, I would have hated it probably in comparison.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I think you're
Oh, it's such a good
way
game.
better
But
off
yeah, I'm
for
glad
it.
I think over the last week I've gotten like almost 4,000 G out of games. I think
Wow, fair play to you.
just because I was in the mood for achievement hunting at the time. So
Sure.
I'm conked out now. Jesus.
I was going to say, is there
It does
anything
take
else
at
that
you, it
you're
really
thinking
does.
about that you're like, oh yeah, I kind of fancy that?
Well, there was that Genesis Noir game. There was the other games I downloaded were Contrast. What else was there? Was something else as well, but I forgot what it was now. There was like one or two other games that were super easy G.
Oh, did you
But I
play
just fell out of
Contrast?
the mood. No, I wanted to. I almost did, but I had
That's
to
a
make a
good
decision.
game.
Either I'm going to play Genesis Noir or I'm going to play Contrast. I picked Genesis Noir, and I thought so I'll play Contrast after. But then by the time I finished Genesis Noir,
You're
I
done,
was so
yeah.
like fried out of getting achievements. I was like, oh, bug, I'm just going to go watch TV shows and movies instead.
Oh, dude,
That's what I did.
Contrast is really cool. It's made
Yeah,
by
no,
Compulsion
I've seen
Games, who made We Happy Few.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I think it's worth.
Yeah,
worth
it looks
your
okay.
time
I'll
if
probably
you-
come back. I haven't deleted it yet, so I'll probably come back to it.
Sure.
And then the last game was Jedi
Right,
Survivor.
the big one, the
So
new game.
I need to start out with this.
Okay.
Games launch awful.
Okay.
60 doesn't run in 60 at all.
Okay.
It barely hits the mid 50s.
Isn't that better than 30 though? I know that's a low, but I'm
No.
just saying. No? Okay.
So I've played games in 30 before,
Okay.
and they've been fine.
Yeah.
Because there's some games that do 30 that is unplayable.
Agreed.
For some reason, it's so like jittery, it just hurts your eyes the entire time.
Sure.
And there's other times where you go into 30 and you could barely notice a difference. And this time, you could barely notice a difference. So I probably played the first third of the game in 55, 45, 50 frames. And the game looked awful because it was obviously in a worse quality to get better frames.
Sure.
And I thought to myself, dude, just go to 30. It'll look a hell of a lot better because I can't stand looking at these terrible graphics anymore. I'm not
Okay.
joking. The game looks awful in performance mode. It looks terrible.
Really? You think
and then
that?
when I switched over to genuinely, when I switched over to quality, I was like, oh my god, this game just went from a 7 out of 10 to like a 9 or a 10 out of 10
You reckon?
in visuals. Seriously, it is so drastic.
Okay. All right.
I say my only complaint is that there was still a lot of pop-ins still. In performance mode, there's screen tearing to high heaven, but in quality mode, there's almost none.
Okay.
I could bet by the end of it, I was like, I can't even see it anymore. So I think I've actually changed my mind on the 30 frames versus 60 frames thing slightly.
Okay.
Slightly. I still think that we should be aiming for 60 frames 4K. I think that is the goal. But if at the moment we can only do 30 4K, then I'm fine with that, I think. As long as they get it right, it's fine. So if Starfield ends up 30 4K and it plays as well as Survivor, I'll be fine with that, I think, for now. I've somewhat changed my mind on it.
So
somewhat.
let's hear it, Jay. So they've now so you didn't you wait a couple of days?
I don't really want to say too much.
No,
I guess I could talk about the patch stuff. Yeah, so what happened was I played it for like, I don't know, 8 hours or so. I was like, oh, this game's difficult to play. So I went and played Redfall. Played Redfall 2 days. Regretted that. Came back to this, and by the time I come back, the patch had come out to fix it, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll see if they've fixed the patch to make the 60 work. Didn't really do much different. Screen tearing was still there. Still a bunch of pop-ins. The game still looked awful.
Quick question,
and I think
Jay.
it went from like 50 on average frames to like 52. Like it barely made a difference. I think most of the patch was to help the PC more than anything. Because the PC port was way worse.
Couple of questions actually. Does quality mode still 60 frames?
No, 30.
Okay,
but a consistent 30 didn't drop a single frame.
I understand, but once
actually, that's a lie. It dropped a lot of frames, but only when you were in the main hub.
Okay, and then so when they patched it, were you then playing on performance mode? Eventually.
No.
Okay.
I played 2/3 of the game in quality, and I'm so glad I did because the game graphically might be one of the best ones out there currently, along with Horizon.
Cute. Okay.
It looks fun. Look, dude, graphics. Fuck me, it's such a good looking game. Holy shit.
And
this game's definitely a Game of the Year contender.
Okay.
But I don't know if it. I think it might not be. I think it might just miss out just because of the bad launch. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh,
I think a lot of games have had bad launches and then still been, up there for it.
Just trying to think of the question I had. Were you talking about patches? You went to Redfall for 2 days. You came back to Jedi. You're playing on quality mode.
Played it on easy as well. I did transition to normal for a brief amount of time.
Okay.
then came back to it because I was like, I'm just getting fed up of having to keep hitting these motherfuckers. I just want to kill them in a couple strokes rather than 7 or 8.
You didn't want that Soulsy like sort of experience.
It's just it was like Souls, but if they tripled the amount of enemies,
Oh.
so it was very overwhelming. Like it wasn't not a Souls game.
This is a quick aside, Jay. I don't mean to distract from the topic, but there is definitely a balance when it comes to difficulty. So, like for instance, like a game like Call of Duty 3, which is a little bit broken, a little bit glitchy on veteran, is completely different to the difficulty in a Dark Souls game. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%.
Where like level design, balance of enemies, number of enemies, health, all these types of things. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
I think the balance was fairly good actually, difficulty wise. I think it was
Okay.
even still a challenge on story.
All right.
To a degree. It was way easier. I think the jump between story and I think it goes story, easy, normal, hard, very hard, or like nightmare or whatever it is. And the jump between story and normal is actually fairly significant in terms of enemy health and aggression, I guess, which makes me fearful of people who want to play this on hard difficulty. Because Jesus Christ, I find that very difficult. I think if you played it on hard or very hard, it would be a lot more like a Souls game, but harder. Because there's 3 times the amount of enemies. Like in Souls, you're most of the time you're going up against 1 or 2 enemies. In this, you're against like 7 or 8 most of the time.
Oh my god!
Like I'd probably say 50% of the time you're up against 7 or 8, and then the 50 you're up against like 2 to 4.
Because I actually played on JEDI Master difficulty for the first game, so the third from top. Sorry, the second from top, and I actually enjoyed that within that game. But by the sounds of it, it sounds different in this one. So
no, I think you'd have a very similar experience.
Okay.
It's just I wanted to know I could finish it. Let's put it this way: if I'd played it on normal, I probably would have only finished it yesterday.
Sure. Okay.
It would have been a much longer game. I think I put 40 odd hours in.
Okay.
100% everything. So.
Okay.
And that's obviously my level of efficiency.
So Jake, give us your no spoiler. What are you saying?
Spoiler.
You saying better than the first game? Are you? Well, hold on a minute.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It is an improvement on the first game by a long shot.
Okay. How do you feel about it at the moment?
I'm not 100% sold on the story quite yet.
Too lefty? What we
saying? A little bit like,
God.
Where are you going with this? There's definitely a couple of conversations you have in the game where I'm like, oh, that's definitely a Star Wars line, isn't it? A 2023 Star Wars
Disney line, yeah, sure.
It's a Disney line.
Yeah.
There's some very political conversations to be had in the game.
Political?
I'm like, ooh, yeah. I mean, it's Star Wars. So it's all about politics. You
sure.
Me?
Yeah, no, yeah, just the Empire sucks. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but they sort of go a bit more in depth with it, depending on who you're talking to.
Okay.
So that was probably one of my very minimal gripes with it. Graphically, a hell of a lot better than the last game. Mechanically, they added a bunch more to it. I don't even know if you did. I don't want to say that.
Unfortunately, Jay, yes, I did get a spoiler of some of the mechanics. I'm not happy about it.
Okay.
Skill ups review.
Skill tree wise, I maxed out the skill tree
during the game.
Did some grinding for like skill points. I found an XP farm area and I XP farmed for like 3 hours. And it wasn't actually that necessary. Didn't really need to.
How come you did that?
I think you can actually max out. You can max out the end of the skill tree by the end of the game if you know what you're doing.
Did you feel underpowered at the time? Was that part of your process?
No, you could play the whole game. I'm genuinely, you could play the whole game without putting a single skill point in the tree.
Okay.
It would make a pretty large difference, but it'd be like playing it it'd be more of a Souls game if you didn't put a single point into the tree. Like I didn't think any of the points in the lightsaber part of the tree was actually that beneficial until like the end game when I actually I would say the combat didn't really feel nice to do until like 4/5 of the way in. It didn't really feel very nice. Like it was fine. I didn't really like understand how to use the weapons properly until like probably like 30 hours into the game, which was a bit odd. You might have a different experience. You probably would. It might have just been me.
Okay, so
that was a bit odd.
No, it's cool. I appreciate what you're saying. So
I actually watched quite a lot of reviews before I
Okay,
played the game, and they were right about one thing in that the story does not get going until like 2/3 of the way through.
that's a shame.
Actually, that's a lie. Like 50% of the way, maybe 50% of the way through the game. There's like one bit of the game that happens, and I'm like, oh my god, that was probably the best thing that happened in a Star Wars game ever. That kind of blew my mind. I'm sold now.
Sure,
I'd
sure.
say the best parts of the game is like 40 to like 80% of the way through, and then the last 20% and the first 40 are pretty naff, story wise. Which I think is pretty on par with most Star Wars
So the
things.
general consensus I'm getting, Jay, and it's funny actually because me and Elle were talking about how, despite the fact that we love the first game, as do you, um, me and Elle aren't like rushing to buy this brand new, right? And the sort of
Mm.
general, I'm getting a few people saying like, "Oh, it's the perfect sequel and it's doing all these new things." Like, obviously, post patch, it's great, but then I'm also getting a few people saying like, "Yeah, it's more Fallen Order." Like,
Yeah, I mean, it is just more a Fallen Order, but improved in small ways here and there. I definitely would say this is a buy on a slight sale, if not a massive sale. I think the only reason I'm saying that is because I've already bought it full price, so it's kind of like I'm giving you
sure,
the lowdown. Like you 100% could have bought this game day one and would have been potentially just as happy as you would have been buying it half price.
sure,
I think it's definitely worth 60 quid. 100% worth 60 quid. It's worth the amount they're asking for it. I will say that.
okay,
But yeah, no, I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. Um, I honestly don't really want to say too much more because I think it will spoil it. I mean, I can't really say too much. Um, I guess the one thing I will say is that the open world side of it and the collectibles and the making conversation with people was probably one of the better things about it. Every time you come back to the main hub, you can have like a new conversation with each person.
okay,
So say
cool,
you go do a main mission, you come back to the main hub,
yeah,
and each person that you have at the cantina, which is the main hub,
sure,
um, has a whole new dialogue option for you to like talk about. Like you have a
okay,
whole new conversation,
cool.
and you like learn a lot about people. Like I actually by the end of it, I was like, oh, I kind of care about this person now.
Sure.
I kind of like I enjoy this person's company. There was one character in particular that I really hope you fall in love with. That is probably my favorite Star Wars character in a long time. And I think it is a reference to a Adam Sandler movie, and I want you to figure that out later and come back to me.
Ah, great. Okay.
You've seen Adam Sandler's movies.
Sure.
Which ones have you seen?
Zohan,
Just name a couple. Yeah, keep
Click.
going. Keep going.
Yeah, that's about it.
You need to watch more Adam Sandler movies. Watch some of the older ones because
I gave up on
there's a good
Happy
reference.
Gilmore.
I will say this definitely feels like a millennial made this game
In a good way or bad way?
in a good way. Like it's a lot of references to
Oh,
movies
sorry. I
and
thought you meant
things.
like a Gen Z. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Millennial. Yeah. Fine. 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 Fine.
I said millennial. What do you mean?
Yeah. I just
Different
you said
generations, Steve.
millennial.
We're
I
millennials.
heard Gen Z.
You are a tit.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Got you. Okay. Fine.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah, no, it's a good game though. I really enjoyed it. I was very surprised.
yeah.
By the end, by the end of it, I was a bit like wary of some of the story. I don't know. I was a bit annoyed about the amount of places you could go. How many places could you go into on Fallen Order?
4 or 5.
How
I
many
think
planets?
4 or 5.
Yeah, I think you can go to technically more
Spoilers.
places, like six. Yeah, okay. You can technically go to about six different places, but only 3 or 4 different planets. Well, there isn't. I feel like there's not as many places to go to, but there's more to do in each place.
I think that's okay.
I think there's roughly. Oh God, how many collectibles are there?
Has it got
Probably somewhere between
Metroidvania
200 and
elements
300
again?
collectibles.
What? Sorry.
Yes,
What?
but
What?
there's a lot of collectibles.
How many collectibles was that? Did you just say 203?
No, I might be overdoing it. It didn't take me that long to collect everything. Let's just say that.
It sounds like it's
Probably took me
another
about
great
4 hours or
single
so.
player Star
But
Wars game, which is what we kind of hoped for.
yeah,
Is that correct?
it's much of the same but better. Let's just put it that way.
Do you think we
I think
were?
actually one of the better characters in it was Merrin. Merrin carried this game hard.
Do you think not to be a Debbie Downer, Jay? Do you think there is an element that is maybe we could have done with a little bit more from this game? Maybe that little extra 10% that makes it that 9 to a 10, maybe sort of thing, or
Yeah, there's like with most games nowadays, is there feels to be something missing. Like, I think that's just my fault of my imagination of what I want from games, and that thing that's always missing is the thing that I always want most of the time. But that thing I always want is I'm not ever really sure. So almost like the sort of the X factor, the thing that is like the
Chemical
hidden
X.
element
Yeah,
the fifth element that I don't really know about.
yeah, sure.
I just don't know what it is. There's something about it that's missing, but I just
As
don't
cheesy
know
as
what it
this
is. Maybe
sounds,
it's
Jay.
time. I'm not sure.
Well, as cheesy as this sounds, and I'm not for any second considering that the developers who made this game didn't love every minute of working on this game.
Mm.
And as cheesy as this sounds, I think passion and love goes a long way with certain projects. And for instance, I like to use Guardians of the Galaxy as an example of this, in that Guardians of the Galaxy could have been a throwaway spin-off, like who gives a shit, nobody even knows these characters, and it's probably turned out to, be potentially the best mini franchise, apart from maybe Iron Man, the best mini franchise within the whole MCU, because it was just pure passion and love, I would argue.
My my opinion on that is the Guardians movies aren't Marvel movies; they're James Gunn movies,
Okay, sure.
and there is a difference. James Gunn makes James Gunn movies. He doesn't make Marvel movies.
Sure.
Simple as, and that's what makes them great, as far as I'm concerned. So I think they are the outliers. They are the hidden gems within the MCU.
Yeah, no,
And I'm glad
fair
about that.
play. I think that is
Now,
a
you can
fair
tell there
statement.
is true passion behind that.
Mm.
True, just having fun with it. Whereas, yeah, what was I going to say about Star Wars? There was something I was going to say. Oh yeah, the development of this game was a lot shorter than the last one, which I think is why the game didn't launch at its best capacity.
That's really
It
annoying, Jay,
basically, it
because
basically had a year less than the first game. It had I think, a little over 3 years, whereas the first game had a little over 4.
that's really annoying because Fallen Order also launched in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Jay, I remembered what I was going to ask you. Apparently, Xbox had the best version of this game. You text me, whereas usually it's PlayStation. What's going on there? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, PlayStation has a different system. There's some sort of like thing that it utilizes that Xbox doesn't, and it basically made the gameplay worse on PlayStation. The average frames on performance mode on PlayStation was like, I think, 48, whereas on Xbox I think it was like 56, 55, 56, which is obviously isn't much better. And then I think the PS5 had a HDR problem where the HDR didn't kick in, so the game was dark as hell. And the only way to fix it was to basically up the brightness on your TV so much that it hurt.
Oh,
Essentially, you had to basically put the game's HDR as low as possible and your TV's as high as possible, and it made it look okay.
Jesus
I think they eventually
Christ.
fixed it, but it just didn't.
Are most of
didn't
these
work
issues
on
fixed
PS5,
now,
basically.
Jay? Because I think they released 2 or 3 patches now, right?
Yeah, they released a patch 4 days ago and today,
Okay.
and they've fixed most of the issues.
Okay.
I haven't checked out the game since today's patch, so I might have to get back to you on that one. Or did I delete the game? I don't remember if I deleted it.
Are we considering that there will be free updates similar to the first game, but no proper DLC?
I don't see any DLC. No.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
I think they're probably. I don't know if you remember they announced that Eclipse game.
I do. Yeah.
I don't think it's being
Fucking
made by
hell,
the same
Jay!
people.
I've completely forgot about that game.
Yeah. So do you know what's funny about that game?
Hmm.
Do you remember the trailer, the announcement trailer for that?
Yeah.
That was made before they even know what the game was going to be about.
Great.
So when that trailer came out, the game hadn't even begun pre-production.
I thought they knew it would be in the Old Republic or whatever it was.
I think literally the only thing they knew was where it was, what time on the timeline it was going to be set.
Great.
That's the only thing they knew.
Great.
They
So
don't know
that
how
game's
the
like
game's
4
gonna
years
be.
off then, basically.
Probably 4 or 5, yeah,
Great.
potentially. Unless they were joking about all that and made us, juking us out. I'm not even sure. They could be April Foolsing us too late. We'll never know. I guess we'll never know.
I guess we'll never know. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't got too many other questions, Jay. I mean, like, I feel like we've covered a lot.
I kind of just want to see what you think about it now. I'm kind of curious what the game's going to be like in a couple of months' time.
Sure.
If it's actually going to work. I genuinely say, don't play it on performance. It's not worth it.
I'm gonna. I'll see how
The
it
game
is.
looks
I'll
awful.
see how it
I'm not
is.
joking. It's like the difference between
720 and 1080.
720 and 1440.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Okay.
If anything, it felt more like the difference between 1080 and 4K. It was just like Jesus, like it was hard to look at.
But to be fair, I guess it was
kinda
1080 versus 4K, probably,
oof.
right?
Yeah, it's probably close. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
All right.
I would say there's definitely parts of the game where you're like, this game's probably running at like 15 frames right now, but it goes away pretty quick.
Okay.
I'm hoping they'll fix that, but we'll see.
Okay.
I'd probably recommend earliest getting this game like Christmas.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Maybe. Because I think even when the first one came out, I think when did it come out? September 2019? I think I bought it maybe 7-8 months after it came out.
Yeah. And I bought it after
By that
you
point, it was
played it,
completely
I think,
fixed,
right?
so-
I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
I think you played it during
Fine,
quarantine, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we both did, actually. I think we both
It
did.
was like the first game Indy treated me. It was like the first game she got when I think I first went on furlough. Finished it in like
Yeah,
5
probably.
days. It was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, great game. I didn't 1000G that, so I might go back and try and do that.
Oh
Although I
my
do have it on
god! Please sort
PlayStation,
your
so-
life out and go do that.
Actually, I think I had more fun getting collectibles in this game than I did in the first one.
Interesting.
I will say Cal is a lot more of an interesting character in this too. He's a lot more likable. He was a bit of an ass in the first game.
I think he was a bit bland in the first game.
Yeah, he was just a child. He was just really young.
Yeah.
Seeming. He was just like he just felt like an 18-year-old that got kicked into the real world too soon.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, he feels like a mid-20-year-old who has seen some shit and knows what he's doing now.
Sure.
To a degree.
Sure. All right.
It's good shit.
Well, that wraps up the show, Jay. Just one last thing to say before we can finish recording.
Okay.
A quote by Philip K. Dick. If you think
Ooh,
this
that's a good
universe is bad, you should see some of the others.
That's good. That's a good one.
And with that, we will leave you. Have a great week, everyone. Whatever you're doing, whenever this goes out. I don't know when it's going to go out. Jay, thank you as always. And we will catch you hopefully very soon with more gaming goodness. Until then, bye.
Bye-bye.
He did it.